All right, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for your patience as we finished our business on the floor. Welcome to this meeting of the Senate Committee on Education. It's not much going on this committee today. So we're just so happy that you showed up. My name is Senator Angie Taylor, and I have the honor of leading us through this the hearing and the follow-up comments and so on for the day. Before we go any further, though, we're going to start with our roll call. Madam Secretary, if you would.
Senator Buck. Here. Senator Cruz Crawford. Here. Senator Doniate. Senator Dondero Loop. Here. Senator Rogish. Here. Senator Titus. Here. Chair Taylor.
And I am present. Thank you very much. Please mark Senator Danyante here when he arrives. I do know that he is on his way. Welcome here in Carson City. And I know there are a couple there's an overflow room here. We know welcome in Las Vegas. I know there is an overflow room there, and there are many people on the phone today. So welcome to all of you for being here in our meeting. A little bit of housekeeping. I know some of you may not have had an opportunity to attend a Senate hearing until now. So just, of course, the usual one, please silence your electronic devices. I say that, I don't ask you to turn them off, because you won't anyway, but please silence them. You can certainly do that. Please silence them. When you come to speak, should you do so, first of all, please make sure you've signed in at the door and give our staff your business card if you have one. We like to make sure we're keeping a track of that. When you come forward and it's that time, please make sure you turn your microphone on, speak loudly, speak clearly, spell your last name, and every time you speak, we're going to ask you to repeat your name, but you only need to spell it that first time, because again, we want to make sure that our records are accurate and that we have your comments on file. You'll also notice that most of us have laptops in front of us. We have notes, exhibits, and so on in front of us, so please do not take that as a sign of inattention or of disrespect. Also, we know there is a lot of interest in the hearing. I'm anxious to hear it myself, but we will do this in the interest of making sure we're fair and give people as much of an opportunity as we can. We're going to limit support, opposition, and neutral testimony to 30 minutes each. Okay, all of them, 30 minutes each. So if you want to make sure you get your time in, get up here first. 30 minutes each, and then each comment should be no longer than 2 minutes. And should you go over the 2 minutes, I will encourage you to finish your comments. A little encouragement, Madam Vice Chair, a little encouragement. Goes a long way. We do want to make sure that we hear from as many people as possible. And then finally, when we do get to those comments, a good ditto, a good I support or I disagree or whatever is also acceptable, so that we can hear from as many people as we can. We will go around. We'll have 3 in Carson, 3 in Vegas, 3 online. 3. We just keep going until we run out of time. And again, just remember, there are many people that would like to weigh in. So if you can keep your comments succinct, then that will give us more time to hear from more people. I believe that's everything that we need. We're ready in Las Vegas, so we will begin. Madam Majority Leader, thank you so much for being with us. We will open the hearing to Senate Bill 460, Provisions Related to Education. Thank you so much for being here, Madam Majority Leader. And again, welcome to all of you. And just please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nicole Canizaro, and I proudly represent Senate District 6 in the northwest portion of the Las Vegas Valley and serve as your Senate Majority Leader here in the Nevada State Senate. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I am very proud to bring to you today Senate Bill 460, which is also known as the Educate Act. I would like to begin with just a little bit of background information before jumping into the major provisions of the bill. And with your permission, Madam Chair, I do have several co-presenters who will be joining me at various portions of the presentation in order to explain some of the pieces that are contained within Senate Bill 460. I would also like to note that we did provide for the members of the committee and also here for everyone who is with us here and who is watching online, a conceptual amendment. It is quite lengthy, but is an amendment that came as a result of many of the ongoing and continued conversations that we are having on this bill. And so my remarks are directed at the bill, including those pieces of that conceptual amendment, Madam Chair. In November of 2023, I made a commitment to Nevadans, a commitment to meet with advocates for public education, to craft policy and governance changes for the state's education system. As a lifelong Nevadan and a product of Nevada's public education system, I dedicated myself to bring forward a package of education reforms, ultimately to seek to improve student outcomes, to recruit and retain our school personnel, and to improve the confidence of Nevada's families that our education system is strengthening the skills of our youth. The Educate Act is a result of that commitment that I made a year and a half ago. It builds on the work that we started in our 2023 legislative session with an historic education budget and with Senate Bill 231, which funded the initial round of educator and staff raises, leading to major reductions in vacancies, and improved retention in both large and small school districts across the state. Now that we've made major strides in teacher vacancies, I believe that it is time to start turning some of our attention to other reforms for public and publicly funded schools. The Educate Act is the result of working with numerous stakeholders, including school district leaders, educators and educator organizations, community members, and policy experts to craft sound policy reform. There are three main pillars that have emerged encompassing the reforms that are most needed. The first of which is accountability, the second of which is transparency, and the third of which is efficiency. These core elements provide the structure that shapes the reforms that are present in this legislation. Through many robust conversations with stakeholders and policymakers, one thing that I know is that everyone in this legislature and beyond is committed to working towards a stronger, more rigorous education system, a system that will empower every Nevada student with the tools, opportunities, and support they need to succeed in an ever-changing world, and one that values our school personnel who dedicate their lives to ensuring every child is given an opportunity to learn and succeed. The Educate Act reflects my deep commitment and the commitment of others to advancing thoughtful and impactful policy to drive meaningful and positive change in our education system, ultimately benefiting our communities and future generations. Madam Chair, I would now like to walk through some portions of the bill and explain exactly what it is the Educate Act is seeking to do. The bill has several overarching topics, many of which are more or less interrelated, and I will organize the contents of the bill by these 6 topic areas. 1, accountability. 2, system of school funding. 3, school district operations and governance. 4, charter school operations and governance. 5, personnel. And 6, student programs and supports. These key themes underpin the policy reforms supported by the 3 foundational pillars: accountability, transparency, and efficiency. Again, I would like to note that these remarks are directed at the conceptual amendment that the committee should have before them and which is available on Nellis as well. So beginning with accountability. This bill requires each public elementary school in the state to prepare a plan to improve the academic achievement of elementary school students, which must include a 3-year strategic plan to improve academic achievement and intermediary goals each school year. Plans to improve academic achievement must contain related professional development. The plan must also include remedial study for English language arts, math, and science for students in grades 1 through 5 based on their results of existing tests. Certain consequences are also in place for schools not meeting intermediary goals in 3 consecutive years. The principals at these schools are also evaluated and may be removed from their position, and you can see a lot of that language in Section 1. Senate Bill 460 also allows for a school district oversight board to be created in certain circumstances. This board may be impaneled once a complaint is issued about a district's failure to comply with certain requirements, and if a corrective plan does not adequately address the failure, it then requires for certain other steps to be taken, and it also requires that a governor declare a state of emergency for that specific district. The bill also requires the legislative auditor to evaluate the use of educational management organizations by charter schools as part of the existing duty to conduct performance audits of the State Public Charter School Authority, or the SPCSA. And additionally, the Interim Finance Committee's Subcommittee on Educational Accountability must select a third party to develop a comprehensive, evidence-based table describing resource and funding levels for adequately meeting the educational needs of students. That third party will then audit the resources and services provided at select schools to determine whether those levels are being met. To hold various entities accountable, Senate Bill 460 builds on the content that must be provided when an entity submits various existing reports, such as the Academic Improvement Plan, accountability reports, recommendations by the Commission on School Funding, information from the Educational Choice Scholarship Program, along with charter school revenue and expense reports. Chair Taylor, with your permission, I would now like to pass things over to Amanda Morgan with Educate Nevada Now, who will be the first of those 3 co-presenters that I mentioned, who will speak to the need for more information from recipients of funds from the Educational Choice Scholarship Program, changes to the at-risk structure, and the survey of school resources that you can see in Section 80.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Thank you, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Amanda Morgan. I'm the Executive Director of Educate Nevada Now. I'm going to walk you through 3 different sections, and I'll take it chronologically and as quickly as possible, because I know we have a lot of ground to cover. So I'll start with Section 12, which begins on page 22 of the bill. This creates oversight for the method used to determine which students are considered at risk and therefore in need of additional resources. It amends NRS 387-12463, which details the duties of the Commission on School Funding, by adding subsection 8, which requires the Commission in each even-number year to recommend revisions to the method of calculating the percentage of pupils determined to be most in need of additional services and assistance to graduate, commonly known as the at-risk weight. It requires the Commission to select a third party to verify that any calculation or algorithm used to determine at-risk pupils is accurate in identifying those pupils, and if there might be a more accurate measure. These findings will be reported to the Department, State Board, and Commission on or before September 1 of each even-numbered year. And the conceptual amendment replaces mentions of the word quintile with the word percentage. And this is to provide the Commission a little more flexibility in recommending revisions to the method of identifying at-risk pupils. And that's seen in the following subsection, which tasks the Commission with examining whether additional pupils beyond the quintile might need to be included in some sort of weight. Next, I'm going to move on to sections 30 through 33, and this starts on page 47 of the bill. Just some background on this. Based on kind of the current minimal and disjointed reporting requirements, right now the state has no meaningful way to evaluate the Educational Choice Scholarship Program, commonly known as the Opportunity Scholarship Program. Are students staying in the program? Are they succeeding? Are there areas of improvement? Any taxpayer-funded effort to educate Nevada students, whether it's at a public school or a private school, deserves transparency and accountability. The following sections would provide some meaningful oversight to the state-funded program. Section 30 and 31 create 2 accountability measures. Section 30, subsection 1, requires each school district that receives a grant of money pursuant to the program report to the Department of Education on or before July 1, and that's in the conceptual amendment, that change, of each year. The total number of pupils at a school that received a grant in the immediately preceding school year, and of those students, the number that are no longer enrolled in that school, and how many of those students were either expelled and the reason why, voluntarily withdrew and the stated reason for the withdrawal, and after withdrawing, the number of pupils that went on to enroll in a public school in the state, a private school in the state, began homeschooling, or were deemed truant or habitually truant per state law. And then finally, the number of pupils that withdrew from a school and were credit deficient, failed, or failing in core academic subjects. Subsection 2 requires this information be disaggregated in ways that are already tracked through the Opportunity Scholarship Program, so that's grade level, gender, race, ethnicity, pupils with disabilities, and economic disadvantage. Subsection 3 requires the department adopt regulations to implement this section. Subsection 4 would make any school that fails to comply with this section ineligible to receive grants in the subsequent school year. And subsection 5 requires the department to report this data to LCB, the state board, and on their department website. In addition to understanding a student's trajectory in the program, Section 31 aims to create transparency around student academic outcomes. On the most recent NDE report, There was no achievement data or reporting for 75% of grant recipient students. And of the 25% for which there was assessment data, it's virtually meaningless because schools are utilizing a hodgepodge of 21 different exams. There is no meaningful way to track student progress and no way to compare their progress as they transition to and from a public school, between private schools, or to compare them to their public school peers. Section 31 aligns testing requirements for voucher recipients with public schools and other choice options like charter schools. Section 31, subsection 1 ensures grant recipients are administered the same state mandated achievement and proficiency assessments as is required of public school pupils pursuant to NRS 390.105. So think of these as kind of the core subject exams. Section B, for English learners, the assessment required pursuant to NRS 390.810 would be required. Like the previous section, it requires this reporting be disaggregated to the extent that FERPA would permit in all of those categories that I mentioned before, grade, gender, et cetera. And subsection 3 would again require the department to adopt regulations implementing this section. Subsection 4, again, schools that fail to comply would be ineligible to receive the grant funding in the subsequent school year. The department would report to the state board, LCB, and on their website. And then sections 32 and 33 just adds conforming language to integrate sections 30 and 31 to NRS 388D260 and 370. The last section that I'm going to discuss is section 80 with the amended language, and this, I believe, starts on page 101. This section is really the natural evolution of recent education funding investments. It's a study to evaluate schools beyond the more simplistic X amount of money goes in, X amount of academic improvement comes out. It instead evaluates where the rubber meets the road. What resources and services are actually reaching these schools? As a quick example, this session, I heard a lawmaker ask the Department of Education, what do we know about how at-risk weighted funding is being used in schools? What resources, what services are being purchased? What are students experiencing? And, to no fault of the department, they didn't have an answer for that. Because first, they don't have the resources to really dig into that, and they don't have that directive. So we just don't fully understand on a granular level what is happening in these schools, or if there are barriers that exist, even beyond just funding levels, that might be hindering growth. Section 80 as amended, the Interim Finance Committee Subcommittee on Education Accountability would select a third-party nonprofit entity to do 3 things. 1, review existing research and studies to create a table of best practice resource levels, services, and funding for schools that have a variety of different needs. 2, compare the best practices table to what is actually happening at a variety of select schools across the state. These will be schools with varying demographics, income areas, geographies, etc. It would be a good cross-section from the state. 3rd, this third party would seek to understand any discrepancies. It would survey school leaders and educators to examine barriers schools might face in delivering these best practices. It may be funding, but we understand from preliminary conversations with school leaders that that's not the only issue. Sometimes it's district policy, it's rules and regulations, it's state law, or other outside issues that create barriers. This report would be made available to the superintendent, district boards, and to the legislature, and it'd be invaluable in understanding what is happening at a granular level and how lawmakers and leaders can better support schools. It also includes an appropriation of $800,000 to the commission to commission the third party. This has really helped a lot of other states move forward, and it will really shed some light on school needs in the state. So I will pass it back to the majority leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan, and thank you, Madam Chair, Nicole Cannizzaro, Senate District 6. So Ms. Morgan did talk a bit about the system of school funding and that at-risk piece. So I want to move on to the next portion that I would like to discuss in this bill, which deals with school district operations and governance. In looking at the provisions addressing school district operations and governance, Senate Bill 460 makes several changes. Since needs can significantly vary among our rural and urban districts, some matters are focused only on those larger school districts. The first provision, focusing on the Clark County School District, changes the duties of the school board. Currently, there are 11 members on the Clark County School District Board of Trustees, of which 4 are non-voting members. They're appointed, and members of this body who were here last session may remember some language that would have allowed for those appointed members. This bill makes these 4 individuals voting members on that Board of Trustees. It also allows them to vote for the election of officers and to also serve as an officer. For both Clark County School District and Washoe County School District, the bill requires the boards to employ a superintendent and chief financial officer who meet certain qualifications. The remaining school district boards may employ any person they determine is qualified, and it also authorizes the commission to require these smaller school district superintendents to hold a master's degree. The bill requires rather than allows a superintendent to be dismissed at any time under certain circumstances, and authorizes NDE to remove the superintendent for cause if they determine at least 30% of schools in that district are not demonstrating proficiency or sufficient academic growth. Moving on to charter school operations and governance, these provisions largely support the transparency and accountability pillars of Senate Bill 460. I would know, and I know that members of this committee may have gotten a lot of incoming discussion regarding some of the charter school pieces. And I want to stress that I believe that charter schools are an important part of our educational system. I do believe that when we talk about accountability, we can actually talk about accountability for all schools that are public schools or publicly funded. And that is why there are provisions in here that address some of those changes. The bill modifies the SPCSA membership to include licensed teachers, subject matter experts, and other educational stakeholders. Several sections address the formation of a proposed charter school. First, Senate Bill 460 allows the Board of Trustees of a school district to object to the formation of a proposed charter school located in the district. The objection is then reviewed by the SPCSA or the Nevada Department of Education as applicable, and the State Board of Education. An application to form a charter must include a description of the financial plan and the policies used by the school, including a consideration of the efficient use of public money received by the school. These applications may only be approved by the proposed sponsor if it is determined that the public money and resources would be used more efficiently and effectively than by a school district. And if the charter school is proposed to be located in a county with a population of 400,000 or more, the SPCSA must hold a public hearing to approve a charter school application or for a request to amend a charter contract. Finally, to ensure quality educational opportunities for all of our kids, Senate Bill 460 authorizes charter school governing bodies to adopt rules concerning the truancy of students if the rules are no more restrictive, rather than at least as restrictive as those in place for traditional public schools. The bill also requires all teachers, rather than at least 80% of teachers who provide instruction at a charter school, to hold a license or an endorsement to teach no later than July 1st of 2028. Moving on to school personnel. Our school personnel, including educators, are essential to the success of Nevada's education system. Providing our schools and classrooms with skilled and dedicated staff across fosters a strong learning environment. Investing in our school staff is an investment in all of our communities. Thus, there are several key personnel topics discussed within Senate Bill 460. First, we talk about evaluations. Second, about retention and professional development. And finally, with respect to recruitment. Beginning with evaluations, Senate Bill 460 changes the pupil growth measurement as part of the statewide performance evaluation system established by the State Board of Education. A point system will be used for teachers or administrators providing their direct instructional services to students. Specific to the Clark County School District, a school associate superintendent must annually review at least 3% of evaluations selected at random and is required to take additional steps if it is determined an evaluation was not conducted properly. Nevada's Department of Education must ensure the evaluation system carried out by each district ensures that highest quality teaching skills are reviewed and related data is reported. The department, in consultation with the Teachers and Leaders Council, must also establish by regulation a certificate program to rate administrators on the ability to properly conduct evaluations and ensure only certified administrators may conduct such evaluations. Additionally, teachers will be required to develop educational growth goals for students rather than learning goals, and then use certain exams to measure achievement of those goals. For teachers who teach subjects other than English, science, or math, course-embedded, teacher-developed, or published assessments that align with the standard identified as the area of highest student may be utilized. The bill also changes the observation cycles for probationary teachers to ensure proper supports are provided to teachers at key stages early in their career. Moving on to retention and professional development, this bill further touches on retaining and training educators currently in our schools. Many years ago, we established recommended teacher-to-student ratios, and this bill builds on that and establishes ratio requirements for teachers to administrators in elementary schools in each school district. The required ratio of teachers to administrators as set in the bill is at least 17-1, and you can find that language in section 14. The State Board of Education may not grant a variance for the teacher-to-student ratio unless the school district complies with the teacher-to-administrator ratio requirement, with exceptions for special schools as defined under NRS 388.020. I would note that this language was intended to ensure that if you have 17 teachers, there is an administrator. This wouldn't require, however, in the course of our conversations, some of the questions that have come up is what happens when you hire that 18th teacher. This wouldn't require them to hire an administrator with an 18th teacher, but once they get to that additional 17 teachers, then that would trigger that. And so if we need to rework, and we're in the process of, and you'll see that language was attempted to be addressed in the conceptual amendment, that really is the intent of that provision, to ensure that we have administrators and teachers and we're not sort of overly heavy on either. For Clark County School District, the bill further requires the district to establish a differential pay scale for educator positions in Title I schools with vacancy rates of 7% or more for at least 2 consecutive years. You can find that language in section 55. To the extent money is available and it is fiscally possible, the district must reserve sufficient money to cover these increases for licensed teachers, licensed administrators, and principals. And the incentive program must be within the scope of collective bargaining, and that language is present in sections 56 and 66, respectively. Looking at training, Senate Bill 460 permits the regional training programs for the professional development of teachers and administrators to provide the training, which must include evidence-based instructional practices and strategies tailored to improve student achievement and proficiency in the core academic subjects. The 4 core academic subjects are, as this committee is, I'm sure, well aware, English language arts, math, science, and social studies, which includes history, geography, economics, civics, financial literacy, and multicultural education. Moving to the provisions that address personnel recruitment, Senate Bill 460 creates the Commission on Recruitment and Retention in Section 37, which will study issues concerning the recruitment and retention of educators in Nevada and report its findings and recommendations to the legislature. To track the educator pipeline in Nevada and give us a better idea of where we can focus future recruitment efforts, the Board of Regents must develop a method for sharing the unique student identification number of an applicant for a teaching license. This method must also identify the number of graduates of Nevada System of Higher Education institutions who become licensed teachers in Nevada, and that's in Section 59. For many years, we have struggled with a delay in the background checks for teachers trying to complete the licensure process. Senate Bill 460 removes the requirement for license renewal applicants to submit fingerprints to NDE for this purpose in sections 43 and 61. And instead, beginning July 1st of 2027, the Central Repository and NDE must participate in the FBI's Wrap-Back program to enable ongoing status notifications of any criminal history of a licensed person. Fingerprints submitted to issue a license will be retained for the Wrap-Back program, and relevant authorities will be notified if a new criminal history event is identified. The bill also creates the Nevada Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Support Program in Section 70 and the account in Section 69 to provide grants to approved teaching apprenticeship program sponsors. The program provides wraparound support and staffing services to recruit, prepare, and retain apprentices who desire to become licensed teachers in a Nevada public school. Section 70 outlines eligibility requirements for participants and evaluation criteria for applicants. It also outlines reporting requirements so the legislature and the governor's office can monitor the program's effectiveness. Additionally, the Commission on Professional Standards in Education must adopt regulations establishing requirements for a person to obtain a provisional license with an endorsement as a registered apprentice in Section 39. For a bit more insight on why these changes will provide significant benefits to our educator pipeline and supplement the highly successful Nevada Institute on Teaching and Educator Preparation and alternative routes to licensure programs across the state, I will now turn things over and welcome to the table my next co-presenters, Madam Chair, Dr. Kenny Varner, Associate Dean for Academic Programs and Initiatives, UNLV, and Dr. Danica Hayes, the Dean of the College of Education at UNLV.
Thank you, Majority Leader. Chair Taylor, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Danica Hayes, for the record, and I serve as Dean of the UNLV College of Education. We want to provide a brief context to explain the why behind this work. In 2017, through Senate Bill 548, the Nevada Institute on Teaching and Educator Preparation, or NITEP, was established by this body and has since been renewed in each legislative session. NITEP was founded on the premise of preparing educators for a dynamic and evolving educational landscape, one that demands constant innovation. It does so by offering meaningful opportunities for community and educational engagement, cutting-edge professional development, and authentic participation of both pre-service and in-service educators in action research. NITEP is grounded in strong commitments to supporting English language learners, students with special needs, and prioritizes early childhood education and literacy, areas that are essential to Nevada's educational goals this session. By 2021, NITEP expanded to include fellows from multiple NCHE institutions and ensured that in-service teachers could benefit from its professional development offerings. In 2023, NITEP began systematically involving every college, high school students who are committed to becoming future educators. In parallel, UNLV's College of Education launched efforts in 2021 to expand educator pathways through a Grow Your Own approach, particularly focused on paraprofessionals, school support staff, and others working in Nevada schools who aspire to become teachers but have previously lacked access to such opportunities. These efforts culminated in the registration of Nevada's first teacher apprenticeship program with the State Apprenticeship Council. Since then, apprenticeship programs have also been developed and approved at Truckee Meadows Community College for paraprofessionals and at the University of Nevada, Reno for early childhood education. Several other institutions across the state have expressed interest in developing similar programs, which will further be supported by Senate Bill 460. With that context, bless you, with that context, we view Senate Bill 460 not as a checklist of tasks, but as a transformative approach to growing educator talent. In addressing recruitment, preparation, and retention, the bill shifts us from fragmented initiatives to more integrated statewide ecosystem. And by bringing together colleges, universities, districts, business, and labor at the same commission table, Senate Bill 460 replaces transactional fixes and temporary solutions with a model of shared stewardship. The bill also replaces guesswork with real-time feedback loops. Connecting each graduate's NCHE ID to licensure and placement data is not a minor technical change. It is the cornerstone of a continuous improvement system. Across Nevada, we'll be able to see which pathways are producing results and which need redesign. To that end, Senate Bill 460 shifts from gatekeeping to guided entry. As Majority Leader spoke about the RATBAC program, by leveraging this FBI's Next Generation Identification System, Nevada's educator licensing can participate in the non-criminal justice RATBAC program, which enables continuous background monitoring with a single set of fingerprints across an educator's career. Paired with the Common Application Portal, RATBAC enhances student safety by delivering real-time, accurate background information, reassuring Nevadans that children's well-being remains a top priority. And finally, Senate Bill 460 also enables transparent reporting through a publicly accessible dashboard, one that parents, administrators, community members, or lawmakers can view on a phone or tablet. This will transform recruitment and retention from isolated administrative data into a shared community effort.
Madam Chair, Kenny Varner, for the record, I serve as Associate Dean at UNLV's College of Education. SB 460 amplifies the successes Dean Hayes highlighted across multiple educator pathways, successes that have propelled UNLV's Nevada Forward, the first and nation's largest registered teacher apprenticeship. Since its launch in 2022, and as of this past weekend when we had graduation, Nevada Forward has graduated 731 candidates through these alternative pathways, with an unprecedented 97% graduation rate among these Grow Your Own participants. Of these graduates, 79% work in hard-to-staff Title I schools, 65% are from underrepresented identity groups, 54% are first-generation college students breaking cycles of poverty, and 20% serve rural and frontier communities in Nevada. From our earliest cohorts, we're seeing over 90% retention in Nevada classrooms years after the program completion, also unheard of in Nevada. The same mindset drives NITEP, as introduced by Dean Hayes. NITEP's innovative and creative pathways not only offer rich experiences to its fellows, but also provide meaningful service to local schools and communities. Its embedded, community-driven model has supported a wide range of educators, from early college students and traditional undergraduates to apprentices, alternative route candidates, and in-service teachers through high-quality professional development and hands-on engagement. SB 460 builds on these successes by establishing the Nevada Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Support Program and laying the foundation to scale this ecosystem statewide. It ensures that NITEP's continued expansion allows us to welcome fellows from across the state, including students from two-year college sector, as well as youth pursuing career and technical education early college pathways. Importantly, NITEP has also addressed one of the most vulnerable points in the teacher pipeline, namely early career burnout. Its mental health and wellness professional development initiatives support educators during the critical first 3 years where attrition rates are highest. Apprenticeships, central to SB 460 as it relates to personnel, are not just about filling vacancies, but about strategically growing Nevada's own. By helping paraprofessionals and school staff transition into certified classroom roles, these programs ensure that apprentices are school-embedded, paid, mentored, and held to clear outcomes. For the first time, SB 460 provides the programmatic infrastructure and wraparound supports necessary to sustain these efforts at scale. Positioning this work under the Office of the Labor Commissioner brings rigorous accountability, ensuring that the word apprenticeship is not simply used as a label, but as a transformative model with real wage progression, on-the-job training, mentorship, and sustained support. Chair Taylor and members, we deeply appreciate Senator Canizaro's leadership in crafting a bill that weaves together safeguards, smart supports, targeted recruitment, professional development, apprenticeship investment, and public accountability. SB 460 doesn't merely respond to urgent challenges in Nevada's education system, it presents a cohesive, Nevada-centered strategy for educator recruitment, preparation, and retention. Ruth Bader Ginsburg once warned against taking away umbrellas in a rainstorm just because people appear dry. SB 460 builds on what is already working in education in Nevada by leveraging the gains made over recent legislative sessions by this body and establishing lasting systems that continue to provide educational umbrellas for Nevadans. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6, and a big thank you to Dr. Varner and Dr. Hayes. I think it is always wonderful to be in this legislative body talking about programs that we have homegrown here in Nevada that are really serving Nevadans. And the programs that we've seen stem from UNLV's amazing work that they are doing to help recruit and retain teachers and professionals along the way is something that I think we should be very proud of, and which Senate Bill 460 seeks to build upon and to implement statewide so that we really can get all of those qualified people who want to be teaching and talking to our young kids in the classroom and working. And that brings us, Madam Chair, to the final major theme of Senate Bill 460, student programs and supports. To ensure Nevada students are achieving at the standards we expect, NDE's regulations regarding assessment limits must include actual time taken from a school day rather than instruction time that is used to prepare for or conduct an assessment. The regulations must prohibit the use of more than 2% of the total number of student attendance minutes each year for this purpose, with certain exceptions in Section 35. The bill also requires each school to annually report related information and requires NDE to develop a plan to provide assistance to schools that exceed the time limit and create a corrective action plan in Section 34. Assessments are important to measure student growth and achievement. However, we need to ensure that assessments are efficiently utilized and as little time as possible is taken from the instructional day. To help support students holistically, Senate Bill 460 requires each school in both Clark County School District and Washoe County School District to employ a school counselor full-time and provide for a comprehensive counseling program in Section 15. Recognizing that the school counselor worker pipeline is a challenge, this section is not effective until July 1st of 2030. Additionally, the conceptual amendment language accounts for the fact that we have nonprofits who are doing really great work in our schools, such as Boys Towns and communities in schools. And a school would be able to continue to utilize those entities under the language proposed in the conceptual amendment. And that was based upon some of the concerns that we heard about trying to get enough folks into our schools as school counselors. But ultimately, the goal would be to have a school counselor employed in every single school, because that resource is so essential for our young folks. This bill also extends the Nevada Ready pre-K account money to private for-profit organizations to serve all children in Nevada under the age of 6, regardless of economic status, to the extent that money is available in Section 13. I believe that pre-K is one of the best investments that we can make for kids. If we can set a kid up for success by giving them access to pre-K programs, they will inevitably do better in their educational journey because they had that foundation from the start. Almost every piece of data that you can read, digest, or cover as it relates to pre-K programs will confirm that that is in fact the case. That the best thing that we can do for kids is make sure that they have access to pre-K. And so Senate Bill 460 does seek to build a system that will lead us up to universal pre-K. I wish that we had the resources to be able to implement universal pre-K starting tomorrow, because I believe it would fundamentally make a difference in the outcomes that we see for our children. But what we can do now, and what we should do now, is to create a system where we are beginning to bridge that pathway and where we are beginning to create those spots for every single kid to get access to pre-K programs, so that parents are not saddled or prohibited from putting their kid into a program just because it is unaffordable, that we are giving that access to each and every child. I believe that this will fundamentally shift our ability to educate Nevada students no matter where it is they go from that pre-K program. And so there are changes within Senate Bill 460 to make aggressive moves towards that universal pre-K. The conceptual amendment proposes to establish, along those same lines, a new matching fund for the $50 million appropriated by Section 75 to provide monies to counties who have enacted sales tax increases pursuant to NRS 377D.100. Since early childhood is already an eligible use for these revenues, this will help to significantly expand the number of available pre-K seats for counties that choose to dedicate revenue to that purpose. As we know, one of those components for this in the struggle for Nevada in expanding access to pre-K is also a capacity issue. To that end, the $10 million in facilities funding appropriated by Section 73, the conceptual amendment will broaden eligibility for this funding to mirror the entities included in NRS 387.652 to include charter schools and nonprofit organizations. I think that we have to utilize every piece that we can in order to create those pre-K spots and to help encourage all of our educators to help take those up so that every kid can get that access. Beginning in Section 71, there are several appropriations for various programs, including the Nevada Ready Pre-K account, the Nevada Registered Teacher Apprenticeship Support account, the Commission on Recruitment and Retention, the Commission on School Funding, the Nevada Institute on Teaching and Educator Preparation, and others. The bill also includes an appropriation to continue the teacher raises provided by Senate Bill 231 of the 2023 legislative session, which must be used to supplement, not supplant, existing funds for the support of public schools or for the salary of teachers or education support professionals in public schools. Additionally, the conceptual amendment adds, as I know that I have had, and I hate to call her out, but I am going to, many conversations with Minority Leader Titus, who has been so gracious in discussing charter school raises with me as we have worked through the budget process, both in our subcommittee and also in the full committee, and my commitment to ensuring, and I know that members who sit on that finance committee have heard me say this multiple times, that we want to be able to provide those raises for our charter school teachers. And so you will see that appropriation adjusted to include the 38 million, and we are making sure to work with NDE to sort of finalize that amount to make sure that we have the appropriate amount to cover all of our teachers and staff in charter schools. We want to be able to extend those raises. We have seen on the back end of that accountability aspect with respect to all of our school districts that we've seen those vacancies decrease. We have seen them be able to retain teachers who were otherwise thinking of leaving that profession. And we have seen that in both big and small school districts across the state. And so we know that this works because we have that data on the back end and on the front end. When they came in to let us know how much they had in terms of vacancies and how much they were going to be able to give to educators, we then saw on the back end that this actually did impact significantly vacancies and retention for all of those qualified teachers and support staff. And so you will see that that is also present in this bill. I believe that the raises that we can give and extend to our charter school teachers, which we have been working on all of this legislative session, will generally follow the same process as those school districts to come and require the sponsors of charter schools to come before the interim finance committee in order to discuss those monies and talk about their vacancies. Finally, the conceptual amendment proposes several revisions to NRS 388G. And for these changes, Madam Chair, with your permission, I would like to go down to Las Vegas and pass things over to Mr. John Velardita, who is the Executive Director of the Clark County Education Association, to provide a bit of history on the statute and why these changes are needed.
Thank you, Majority Leader Canizaro. And Chair Taylor and members of the committee, I'd like to put this into context. This is clearly the piece of the amendment that speaks to only Clark County School District. And to give you some background, in 2015, there was a bill that came out of the legislative session, AB 394, that essentially said, let's set up a process to determine whether or not we can have an improved delivery system in Clark County School District. Prior to that, there was a strong argument around, let's just break up the school district because it's failing. What came out of that process during the interim between the 2015 and 2017 session was a process. There was a committee that was formed by legislators in the Senate and the Assembly, Democrats and Republicans, and it was called the AB 394 committee. In fact, there was a subcommittee formed called the AB 394 TAC committee, Technical Advisory Committee. I sat on that committee, and the whole idea behind that process, and there was multiple public meetings, was what is the best solution for Clark County to improve student outcomes? And what we landed on, and that's after having several national experts come in and talk about a school district of the size of Clark County, that essentially said the best direction you can go on is a decentralized model. So unlike all the other school districts in Nevada, Clark has a decentralized model. And let me explain what that means and why it's appropriate for this particular amendment to kind of right size with all the accountability measures that SB 460 has in it. The theory was the hub of delivery is the school site. And so if we put all the control over funding and the control over the plan of operation and the plan for a student's education in to that school site, then improvement on student outcomes, whether they're proficiency levels, graduation levels, et cetera, should occur. That was the theory. That was the intent. And so what was passed, or I should say, what was developed and recommended and ultimately passed in the 2017 session by bipartisan support was that there would be a decentralized model that essentially created schools called school precincts. And they would control 85% of every dollar that went down to a school district. They would also be able to have services that Central had controlled transferred to them. More important, they would be able to control any dollar that was left over in their budget from the preceding year so that they could use that on student achievement. They had the right to put together the appropriate staff complement in each school. They had the right to develop a plan for the best education path for our students, and they controlled the budget. And when I say they, I'm talking about the principal at the school site. All 360, now there's 370 schools this applied to. That was the theory. The hub of delivery, decentralized, let them control the funds, let them have control over the direction of a student's education, et cetera. That was passed in 2017. Well, I'm here to tell you today that that model has not produced the results it's supposed to produce. So, for example, the proficiency levels have not moved significantly in Clark County School District over the last several years, notwithstanding the 2+ years we had of the pandemic. The proficiency levels just for the last 3 years have been stagnant or flat with some marginal improvement. The graduation rates have not seen any significant development as well. And those that graduate have low proficiency levels in math, ELA, and reading. And many of the star rating schools, particularly 1 and 2 stars, which are our urban core, have remained about the same number. In fact, have increased the last couple of years. 2 years ago, there was 218. Today, there's 223. And then, more important, the schools were empowered to keep the money in their budget if they didn't spend it. And the intent behind that was to provide additional resources for a student's education. And let me just share with you some interesting facts around the dollars that school precincts accumulated over the last several years. Starting in fiscal year 21-22, these schools had $182 million of carryover dollars. The following year, fiscal year 22-23, they had $207 million of carryover dollars. Fiscal year 23-24, they had $247 million. I'll pause because in 2023, SB 292 was passed that essentially mandated that a school precinct had to use that carryover dollar on additional instruction for students. It was very prescriptive. There was 6 different options they were given. Otherwise, they'd lose that money. Did that happen? Fiscal year 24-25, $472 million left over in these schools from carryover dollars. That's over 2.5 times more than what they started just a few years before. So what I want to share with you is the decentralized model that gave control to the school site, the plan of operation, the budget, the resources, 85 cents on the dollar, control of other sources that Central had, did not produce the type of outcomes we have. SB 460 now, if passed, with the accountability measures, with trustees, with superintendents, teachers, principals, etc., leaves one component out without this amendment, and that is a system reform. And the system reform is around 388G's reorg. And so where are those at? If you look at the amendment, I'll walk you through them. So on page 16 of the amendment, 388G 600 essentially says that now superintendent and trustees have intervention and the ability to determine outcomes because they'll have authority in making decisions at the school site, where the previous provision essentially empowered just the school site to make decisions. The next significant change is on pages 16 through 19, and that's 388G 610, and that essentially says that all the services that the district central had transferred to the school site have to be returned to central so that they could be managed more effectively. The next change, again, page 16 through 19, 388G 610, allows for a school district to make staffing accommodations at schools to ensure that the right staff complement is in place to ensure better student outcomes. That didn't exist before. The next change on page 20 of the amendment, 388G 650, allows a school district to force a school to use any carryover dollars for a student education. No more escalation of these bank accounts in these schools. They have to be used to teach kids. And then the next section that's in the amendment on page 20 is 388G.660. It essentially eliminates the 85 to 15% ratio, and that means that school precincts will no longer receive 85% of every dollar that's sent. That's gone. And then the next amendment around the weights, whether they're SPED, ELL, free and reduced lunch, GATE, etc., on page 21 to 22, that's 388G.670. That puts that back into the control of the central office rather than the school sites. And then finally, the last amendment, or the last change on the amendment on page 2324, which is 388G.740 under statute, essentially says there's a return to balance if there's a vacancy on a principal, that the school organizational teams can make a recommendation for a vacant position of who would be eligible in terms of a principal, but the superintendent would have final authority. So in summation, this is an amendment strictly for Clark. This is an amendment that acknowledged that this journey on a decentralized model did not produce its intended outcomes. Proficiency levels are flat, graduation rates are marginal, and those who graduate can't read and write in some cases. And then this accumulation of now almost $500 million sitting in these schools where that money was intended to go to students, there has to be some intervention. So what this does is it provides intervention at the district level with these schools. Now, opponents will say, well, it hasn't worked because it wasn't fully executed. It was never properly implemented. I would beg to differ. The key components, 85 cents on a dollar, keep your carryover dollars. You control the budget. You control the plan of operation. You put the staff complement in the building. All of that has been in place for the last several years. Those are the key components to a decentralized system. And so that argument that it's never had a chance really is not accurate at all. So in conclusion, if SB 460 is passed with this amendment, this will give the new Board of Trustees and the new superintendent, who are now being held to a higher standard of accountability for student outcomes, the ability to intervene and help manage a student's education, whereas our decentralized model before just did not meet up to the outcomes that was intended. And with that, Majority Leader Cannizzaro, I turn it back over.
And thank you, Madam Chair, Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So in closing, while Senate Bill 460 may not be a panacea, this is a significant step in the right direction. For many years, this body has worked very hard to pass good policy, to improve and to support our education system. It has been a difficult road, but I know everyone on this committee would probably agree with me that it is one that is worth traveling. I believe that we need to work together to ensure that all our children receive a quality education from schools that have high standards, that we have a core of effective teachers and principals, and that the structure of Nevada's public education system continues to support these goals. I believe fundamentally that education empowers individuals. It empowers them with the knowledge, the skills, and the opportunities to be successful, to foster innovation, and to meaningfully contribute to their communities. And I believe it is our responsibility, and even our moral obligation, to ensure that every single child in Nevada receives a high-quality education. I know members of this committee have heard me say many times that I am the daughter of a bartender and a waitress who did not have a high school education. And so when their 7-year-old daughter told them that I wanted to be a lawyer when I grow up, that was a pretty high hurdle for my parents, who did not know all of the ways in which to get to that end goal. But I was very lucky to have teachers and staff along the way who made it possible for a kid like me, sitting in a classroom, dreaming of becoming an attorney, to be able to succeed, to graduate from high school, to become the first person to go to college and to graduate, to earn a law degree, and to become a litigator for most of my career as a gang deputy in the Clark County District Attorney's Office. There is very little that I believe a child cannot do if we do not provide them, if we just provide them an educational opportunity. I now am the mom of 3 very rambunctious and wonderful little boys, one of which, as I think back to my last legislative session, was in the process of making his appearance. His birthday is tomorrow. He will be 2. I know how important it is when you're thinking about how do you create a place for your own child to succeed. How do we do that? This bill does not solve all of the issues that this committee confronts on a regular basis, but I do believe it is a significant step in the right direction. And if we believe in educating our students, if we believe in that promise, if we believe that if we provide an opportunity for every child to get an education, no matter what form that comes in. And Senate Bill 460 is not picking winners or losers. It is picking a system that is designed to make sure that when we are investing public dollars, we know that there are good returns on our investment. I believe that that is smart policy. It is designed so that when students enter a classroom, wherever that classroom may be, that even a child whose parents do not have an education and who only knows that the idea of being a lawyer sounds super cool, that when they walk into that classroom, they can have every opportunity to succeed. I believe in that, and I hope that I can answer all of the questions that this committee may have with respect to Senate Bill 460. I appreciate the time. I know it was a lengthy presentation. And Madam Chair, I would love to take any questions that you or the committee may have at this point in time, and may just need to phone a friend if they may have a bit more expertise on this issue than I may have. But with that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader and guests, Ms. Morgan, Dr. Varner, Dean Hayes, and Mr. Valadito. We appreciate the thorough, yes, it was lengthy, but certainly thorough presentation for the committee. So committee, we'll turn it here and see what questions committee members may have for the Majority Leader and team. We'll start with Senator Titus.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Majority Leader. And I do appreciate a thorough presentation, but I still have some questions. I appreciate you acknowledging the importance of the parity for charter school teachers, so thank you for that. I'd like to ask not conceptual stuff, but actually go to sections of the bill, if that is okay, and start out, if I might, might be a couple questions, Chair. So section 14, section 14, page 27. on the bill, that's what I'm looking at. As coming from a small school district and a very small school, there's that ratio, and I just need some clarification. The ratio of not more than 17 teachers is defined per administrator. What is is there a current ratio?
Thank you for the question, Senator Titus. Through you, Madam Chair, to Senator Titus. Nicole Cannizzaro, Senate District 6.
Please, Majority Leader, please go direct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So within Section 14, and I did mention during the presentation that this language was intended to be a bit more precise than it was in the bill as originally drafted. And so that's why you will see that language in the conceptual amendment. There is not currently a ratio that, as it relates to administrators and teachers. There are recommended ratios as it comes to class sizes, but this was intended to ensure that we are really filling those teacher spots. That's sort of the intent, right? So that we're not overly heavy on administrators versus teachers. And again, I think the intent of this language and what we are trying to get at with respect to the amendment on page 4, section 14, where it says that there's a ratio of at least 17 teachers, that is designed so that for every 17 teachers, ostensibly, you would have an administrator, but it wouldn't mean that if you had, especially for those smaller schools, because we did have some of those conversations with the school district, with some of the school district representatives, that if they have 18 teachers, they may not have the capacity or the ability to hire that additional administrator, and that would be fine under the language of this bill. What it would mean is if they got to that 34, then they would need to hire another administrator to sort of help make sure that we are maintaining appropriate management and also so that we're not filling a bunch of administrator positions over teacher positions. And that's really the intent of this language. I think that the conceptual amendment language clarifies that.
Helps. Yeah, thank you. I actually appreciate that. I frequently think things are a little bit top-heavy, so I just wanted some clarification. Can I continue, Madam Chair? Yeah, thank you. So, again, section 21. Where's the page? I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't write down my page numbers. But section 21, number 27, page 38 of the bill. So that mentions that the consideration, description, efficient use of any public money received by the charter school in carrying out the financial plan and policies, including construction purposes. Currently, it's my understanding that charter schools do not get any extra money for construction, and so this obviously wants, if you are going to do construction with the money you get, you need to know that. Do the rest of the public schools have that same caveat? It's my understanding, and correct me please, they get separate funding for construction?
Thank you for the question, Senator Titus. Nicole Cannizzaro, Senate District 6. So that language, first I would recognize that charter schools, in addition to whatever other funding they may have, right, because they have funding separate and apart from their per pupil funding, whereas district public schools simply have that per pupil funding that we all allocate here at the legislative level. And so charter schools certainly can use that per pupil funding that they receive, that's those state and public dollars, for facilities purposes. I would also note that there is language and availability for the use of some infrastructure bank dollars, right, for bonding capacity in order to help build facilities. That is one of the uses of that. And there was actually an approval for the infrastructure bank to approve construction for charter schools. So that exists. For regular public schools, the type that we would think of through a school district, they actually have to go through whatever the processes are for that particular school district, and generally we're talking about bonding authority and bonding capacity. And so I know this body has definitely, and I know, gosh, I think it was 2019 where we talked about allowing for additional bonding authority for some of our school districts. That was in a bill that I had worked on in 2019. Many of our different school districts, I know some of you may remember a ballot question for Washoe County School District with respect to allowing for additional bonding capacity, but they have a whole separate process to go through. There are also restrictions on where those schools can be and how close they can be for other schools. And then, of course, because we have built upon feeder systems, there are also restrictions around some of that, right, for how it is that they are approved in terms of facilities funding. But they don't have separate funding set aside, right? Those district schools receive the same funds on a per pupil basis as charter schools do, but they have a different process to go through for approval of that. And I think that there are different ways in which charter schools certainly do access some of that. And obviously there is currently this session a one-shot bill that I'm sure we will be discussing at some point in the course of money committees, as we've heard mentions of it in presentations with respect to facility funding.
I know we have, I know a lot of members have questions, and I apologize, Madam Chair, but I appreciate you letting me have another one. Opening statement by one of your presenters, and maybe Majority Leader might have been you, talking about the that 100% of the teachers at the charter schools will have either a license or endorsement. And just for clarity, the rest of the public school system, that's already the rule?
Thank you for the question, Senator Titus. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6, that is correct.
And so all the substitute teachers have to have endorsements before they're allowed to substitute teach, because unfortunately across the board, we have a lot of substitute teachers being full-time teachers, so just want to make clear.
Yes, and Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6, Senator Titus, that is correct. There are provisions for how it is that you would be licensed, right, in order to be approved as a substitute teacher. And so that is true for all of our other public schools. My understanding is that the vast majority of teachers and folks who are working in our charter schools do have some sort of licensure. And you will note that the language in Senate Bill 460 does provide a ramp up to that, but also the availability to either receive a teaching license or to receive some sort of endorsement, right? If they're teaching a curriculum that is not typically that which you would see as a licensed educator, they can certainly go through the process of receiving an endorsement. And I think that that's an important mechanism for ensuring that kids really are getting that quality education.
Thank you for that. And Madam Chair and Madam Vice Chair, I have tons of fiscal questions, but I'll wait for the fiscal committee.
Thank you, Dr. Titus. You want to follow up, Madam Vice Chair?
I just wanted to sort of respond in lieu of the presenter to Senator's question about our other people, our substitutes and others that work in schools. I'm a licensed certificated teacher, and I could be a substitute, correct? And also, substitutes all have to have at least 60 hours worth of college curriculum before they are a substitute. So it's not anymore. It's not just a random person who shows up. And I would assume that many of the charter schools, private schools, and other schools follow some of those same pieces. I don't think that that's I don't think anybody's criticizing anybody. I just think that we're saying that we would like to have some qualifications, and there are some qualifications for all substitutes. But I wished I could tell you how many licensed, certificated, retired teachers I know that are actually substitutes.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Other questions from the committee? One comment I would make, just going back to my school board days, is when we needed to build facilities, back to the building question, we couldn't get that money from the state. That was before we had the infrastructure bank. And so Washoe County, the voters of Washoe counties passed a bond so that schools could be built, but there was no state revenue, no state source of capital, which is not uncommon across the nation, by the way. Other questions? Senator Buck.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Do schools still submit school improvement plans, and how are your plans different?
That is a great question, Senator Buck. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So yes, the language here, and you will see in the conceptual amendment that we tried to make sure that we were tightening up the language surrounding the elementary schools improvement plans. I think there's two parts of that question. Yes, that would still exist, the overall improvement plans. This is really designed to make sure that as we are looking at elementary schools, how can we make sure we're getting that right? I believe that if we can get it right for elementary schools, we can replicate that to the middle and high school levels. And again, from a premise standpoint, the sooner in a child's educational journey we can make sure that we are doing everything to support them, the better and more successful they will be. So this would not take away from the current requirements to have those plans.
Other questions? Senator Buck, no? Senator Rogich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for this bill. I'm hoping that you'll discuss further the hiring of teachers and why the principals will not be in control of hiring.
Thank you for that question, Senator Rogich. So we definitely wanted to, with respect to hiring the teachers, they still have the same sort of control on that piece of it. When we talk about in the bill some of the language surrounding where there may be input from a superintendent standpoint, we wanted to make sure that the superintendent of public schools, as it relates to Clark County, would have some input over principals and how they are hired. We believe that that is something that should be part of that job. And if we're going to ask for accountability across the board, we wanted to make sure that they had a voice in all of that. And so that is what you will see in the language throughout this particular bill and within the conceptual amendment.
Thank you, Senator Rogich. Senator Cruz Crawford?
Thank you so much, Chair. Save the best for last. Just kidding. We love each other so much here, like a family. But I appreciate you working through all of these amendments, and I know a bill of this magnitude is never easy. So I do have a question, putting on my principal hat, a few questions, if I may. Chair. Okay, perfect. Let's start with looking in the amendment, page 4, section 14. Again, you've been asked a lot about these 17 teachers. One of my concerns, it doesn't take into account support staff. And so I have about 35 teachers, but I have just as many support staff. And that takes on a lot of the roles that I have to do for day-to-day supervision. And, even my office manager, I have to sit with her every single day and go over what the extra duty pay allotment is and payroll with her and all that. Has there been any discussion on section 14 of adding also support staff in that staffing? And if not, we can talk about that offline.
Thank you for the question, Senator Cruz Crawford. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So that actually has not come up in our conversations, and I would be happy to discuss that more with you. I think, the whole intent here is to make sure that there's a good balance and that we're really filling those teacher, and I think to your point, staff positions, making sure we have a good qualified teacher in every single classroom for every student, and making sure that there's good staff around them. So I would be happy to have those ongoing conversations, but we have not had that come up in the discussions on this bill.
Okay, thank you. I think coming up with a ratio, percentage of time that ultimately we want principals to be able to supervise in a very strong way, and that comes with time. And so how much time does 17 teachers take compared to an additional amount of support staff? So I appreciate you thinking about that. Okay, and then page 8 of the amendment, section 43, section 4312, a school district or superintendent of schools has no liability for dismissal pursuant to the subsection, and any provision of a collective bargaining agreement to the contrary is void. Can you talk me through why this piece came about? It's in the amendment on page 8, section 4712. I apologize.
Yes, thank you for that question, Senator Cruz Crawford. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So in that language, and it's actually, I should have made sure that we went down one more page, because that's section 47 in the bill under subsection 12. One of the concerns that we heard throughout our discussions since this bill was introduced was what happens if somebody has to be let go and dismissed, but there are provisions of a contract that then provide liability to the school district or to the superintendent. And so we attempted to put in some language to essentially ensure that we could maintain accountability without then incurring additional legal liability if there was a dismissal because somebody was not meeting all of the requirements of making sure that they were, doing their job and that students are being successful. And so we added that language after some concerns from some of the stakeholders on this bill that brought forward to us just that idea that, potentially you could have somebody who was underperforming, but there might not be something in the contract that would allow you to dismiss them. And so since we were creating that language, they wanted to make sure that there wasn't, legal liability on the back end if that person was let go.
And would this be subject to support staff, teachers, and administrators?
Thank you for the question, Senator Cruz Crawford. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So this particular section has to do with removal for a superintendent. And so that's where this particular language would kick in.
Okay, so this is about a superintendent.
Yes.
Okay. My next, and if that's okay, Madam Chair? Okay, perfect. On the original bill, page 69, section 49, subsection, we're going through to here. I'm looking at your 2.2 for the purposes of calculating a rating. I'm looking at evaluating teachers and administrators. Currently, right now, we have SLGs. Does this, and those are student learning goals, they're set goals that are agreed upon with administrator to their supervisor, or for a teacher, it's a teacher agreed upon with their administrator. Are these ratings including SLGs, student learning goals? Could those be used? And we can come back offline because I know that's a very, very particular question. The reason why we came up with SLGs back in the day is because a music teacher doesn't always take an SBAC test, so it's hard to level the playing field across there.
Yes, thank you for that question, Senator Cruz Crawford. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So we did hear some concerns about that, and obviously that's why you see language that would pertain to those teachers who are teaching those core subjects that I discussed during the presentation. And so I'd be happy to work on any suggestions that you might have with respect to that for teachers who are teaching subjects other than those core pieces, because we did want to sort of focus this on that and then come up with some sort of mechanism, and if that includes an SLG, but I would be happy to work on some language that would help to clarify that, because that was one of the concerns that we did hear during our conversations on this bill.
Okay, and obviously with every action, there's a reaction, right? And so just pushing other people through that don't want to teach the general ed classes and be like, okay, I want to pursue that music. And then my very last portion is of the original bill, page 94, section 70. We had a great presentation from UNLV. I really appreciate this part. I think it's, I've been working on this teacher apprenticeship alternative pathways for a long time. One of the things that I've noticed, and I like to close on this, is that my teachers that are coming out of the programs need a lot more support on the back end, which I really appreciate. I feel like this is building that in. And so with all these alternative programs, as our teachers come in, they're needing a lot more support the first 3 years outside. I'm also seeing that with administrators. And I really like all the wraparound supports here. And I think one of the biggest things that I'd like to do is also include some more wraparounds for our family. Wouldn't necessarily be in Section 70, but as we look at public education and all the stakeholders that play a role in increasing student achievement, I think one of the biggest things that we need to account for is our families. And I think your pre-K bill really aims to that, but putting, some more guardrails in place so that we level accountability measures spread across the board. It should be a family's responsibility, support staff responsibility, teachers' responsibility, administrators' responsibility. And I'd just like to close on that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Cruz Crawford. Senator Danyante, no questions? I do have a couple of questions. Now we save the best for last. No, I'm kidding. No, I do have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you, Madam Majority Leader and team, for undertaking. This is such a big undertaking and such an important area in our state. So I can't imagine how many hours were spent from each of you putting this together. So thank you on behalf of all of our students, some of which are here, by the way, I'm going to go just in order of, as I took notes as I was reading the bill. If we can start on page 11. Towards the bottom, just a general question. This is a sub 13, a requirement that each school year contain at least 4 days of professional development, and 3 days devoted to training. I just wonder where those days came from. Is that best practice, or just kind of how you landed on those?
And thank you for the question, Chair Taylor. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So we actually were looking to make sure that we were increasing that professional development. And so it wasn't based on a particular assessment or study. We were just sort of looking to how it is that we can increase some of that, and especially in the context and in conjunction with the school plans, making sure that that professional development kind of went along with that, so we can have some measurable and articulable goals and some ways in which we're ensuring that we're not throwing people into a profession and asking them to move mountains without also providing those supports on the back end. And so I know it's always a little bit of a give and take when you talk about professional development days, because that can be tough just with the resources to be able to complete it. But we wanted to at least start a conversation about how it is we make sure we're doing enough of that. And so that's really where that came from.
Oh, thank you, Madam Majority Leader. I'll continue on page 27. This is about just back to the ratios, right? I just want a little clarity. So does that mean, as we go to section 14, sub 1, sub A, sub 2, does that mean that those schools cannot hire an administrator until all teaching positions are filled? What's the intent there?
Thank you for that question, Chair Taylor. And again, I think this language has proven to be one that we are trying to work on. I think the intent is, right, to make sure that we are filling classroom positions. I think that's something that when we are listening to parents and to students, right, they want to make sure that there are enough teachers in the classroom. They want to make sure that there's enough staff there to support them, and not that there are just a lot of top-heavy administrator positions being filled to the detriment of filling those classroom positions. And so we look to try to establish sort of that ratio. And again, I think the intent of this, and I think that the conceptual amendment where it says there's a ratio of at least 17 teachers is really designed to say that if you have more than that 17, you don't necessarily have to hire a second administrator, but before you would get to that point, you would want to make sure that you're filling those teaching positions. And so it wouldn't be until there was that 34, right, the 34, that you would have to have then the 2 administrators once you went above that. And that was really, I think, again, just designed to make sure that we are filling those classroom-based positions. Because when you talk to parents and you talk to students, right, they don't want to be walking into classrooms. We've heard a lot of concerns about long-term subs. We've seen a lot of long-term substitute teachers who, we love that they're substitute teachers. It makes our ability to continue to teach kids on a daily basis something that we can do, but they should be there, right, to take the position of the teacher where there is a temporary vacancy, not to serve sort of as the de facto teacher in a classroom. We should be getting our actual licensed teachers in those classrooms so they can be teaching our students, and we don't have students who are frustrated because they have gone to their English class for the 10th time and they're still that long-term sub and they're still not doing the work that they thought they were going into that classroom to do. And so that was really where the impetus came from, this sort of language, was the intent to try to make sure that we are tackling that from a perspective of the student in the classroom and parents who are expecting to have those teachers there.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Majority Leader. We have some of the largest class sizes in the country, and we know that's a big piece. If we can go on to page 66, just a couple more questions. Page 66. I'm wondering. I'm down to the 3 at the very bottom. This is how the department, NDE, could approves candidates or clears candidates, right, for superintendent. I was wondering if if they send a letter to the Board of Trustees and says candidate Taylor does not meet the requirement, qualifications and so on, is there an opportunity to appeal, like meaning, hey, let me explain, this is why that looks, or you know what I mean? Because sometimes it looks like A, but it's really B.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So that does not exist in the language that we have here. The intent here, obviously, with this portion, right, was to make sure that we have some minimum qualifications, especially for those larger school districts who are handling very large budgets, who are managing a lot of folks. We want to make sure that we have people who have at least a baseline of the skills necessary to run that level of school district. And so we wanted to create a mechanism to allow for only those qualified individuals to be before the Board of Trustees so that they can then make their assessments and their determination. And we thought that utilizing the department was a good way to do that because it really is just a function of a screening mechanism. But be happy to look at some language if we wanted to ensure that there was, appropriate due process for anybody who might be challenging a decision of the department. But that was really, I think, the intent just of this particular section was to make sure that we have qualified people presenting themselves to our boards of trustees and making sure they have at least those minimum qualifications. And then we can make assessments based upon, whatever other attributes are there that exist for those particular candidates, but happy to work on some language to that effect.
No, I appreciate that, Madam Majority Leader. It's, I think, a minimum base of qualifications could do nothing but help our school boards and help to make our districts better. Now, Senator, so thank you so much for the questions. Now, Senator Danyante wants to be last, so he can be the best. So we'll go right ahead. Senator Danyante.
Thank you so much, Chair. I think just to round out these round of questions, I think a lot of it is technical, but perhaps I have a two-pronged question. The first thing is, it's my understanding that the presentation that you are putting forward is as a result of the actions that have transpired over the last several years. And sometimes, of course, it's easy to pay attention to the technicality pieces of the bill and why we're adding requirements or why we're adding qualifications to certain things. But there's a reason why we're putting you're putting this forward. So perhaps if you can help us walk through of why are we experiencing some of the issues, perhaps with SB 230, the bill that we allocated last year towards helping with teacher raises, in terms of what led to what we're facing today and why this bill is essentially necessary to alleviate the concerns. And then second, I've received plenty of emails for and against the bill, and I think that there's concerns of the requirements that we're putting forth for private and charter schools as to whether or not it's fair. I come from the opinion that if there are public dollars similar to you, that they should be following the same compliance requirements that public schools do. And so I guess the question is, why is it important that private and charter schools follow the same reporting requirements, assessments, and standards as we put on public schools? And so it's just a two-pronged question. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Donyante. Nicole Canizaro, Senate District 6. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we came into this last legislative session in 2023 with the idea that we were going to be putting additional money into education. And we passed the largest education budget in the history of the state. And in that process, we made a lot of decisions that resulted in over $2 billion additional going into public education here in this state, to increase the per pupil funding, to make sure that we were doing what we thought was appropriate with respect to how it is that we provide the resources to allow for teachers to teach, where we provide the resources where we allow school districts to be able to do what they need to do. And throughout that conversation, as we talked about the education budget, and as we talked about increasing our per pupil funding, and the chair of finance certainly knows all of this, there was a lot of conversation around, well, if we put this money into education, how do we know that it is going to result in a better education for students? Is money the problem? Is it just money, or are there other things? If we put all this money in, is that a wise investment? That was a lot of the questioning that we had throughout that budgeting process. And then when we proposed Senate Bill 231, again, it was a lot of the same questions. Well, if we give more money to our educators and staff, does that mean that we would have better educational outcomes? What does that mean? And if we are going to invest this sort of money, if we are going to put public dollars into education to the tune of $2.2 billion, if we are going to provide another $250 million for educator and staff pay raises, then what's the accountability on the back end? How is it that we make sure that that is the right investment? Or should we come back in this legislative session and talk about why we should pull that money out of education because it wasn't doing what we thought it was going to do? That was a lot of the conversation that we had during the last legislative session. And the governor had a bill that talked about some of the basic mechanisms to evaluate accountability and student achievement. And I believe that conversation needed to continue. And so when we were sort of coming out of that legislative session, and like I said, in November of 2023, there was a lot of public conversation about accountability, about making sure that we were doing what was best for students. And one of the things that I made a very public promise to do was to make sure that we were going to talk about that. How it is that we educate our students, how it is that we're delivering on that promise, how it is that we're best utilizing dollars, and how can we make sure that we have touch points along the way to make sure that that investment makes sense. Right? And that is not discriminatory when it comes to public dollars. I believe that every public dollar, whether we're talking about education or we're talking about healthcare outcomes, we talk about this in those, right? We talk about it when we discuss the capital improvement projects. We talk about it when we discuss whether or not we're making smart criminal justice policy. We talk about it in a variety of aspects throughout this building with every piece of legislation. The Finance Committee and all the bills that we are hearing currently talk about how it is we're best spending this money and what are the outcomes on the back end of that. And so we started having conversations with a variety of folks involved in education, whether they were policy individuals at the national level who worked on different education policies, whether it was working with our higher educational institutions to talk about how it is they're recruiting and retaining teachers, and finding that they actually have a lot of really great data on how they're recruiting and retaining, how they're giving these alternative routes to licensure, how it is that our paraprofessionals are finding their way into the classrooms, and what the back end data is that shows that if we can get those folks into a teaching license, they actually stay in those schools, they stay in our Title I schools, they stay in those hard to teach positions, in those hard to fill positions. How is it that we're doing that? And so you see some of that represented in this bill. We talked about other ways in which we are spending public dollars where we just don't have any accountability. Immediately following the last legislative session, we went into an interim finance committee meeting that went for many, many, many hours, where it was discovered that one organization that was utilizing some of the educational choice scholarship money actually had taken all of that money. And so there were students that were potentially going to lose their scholarships because one organization came in and sucked up all of the money and were actually holding money in reserves rather than putting those dollars, state taxpayer dollars, Nevada dollars, that Nevada taxpayers had helped to kind of put together in that program, weren't going to students. And so we made decisions in the interim finance committee to actually make sure those dollars went to those students. And so I think at various points along the way, we have seen that accountability matters. And so a lot of that is reflected in this bill, and we tried to pull all of that together. We talked a lot with our educators and with our school boards of trustees to think about some of the things that we were watching. Some of the things that you've seen in this bill, for example, the voting for the school board of trustees. One of the questions that we had after last session was, if we put appointed members on a school board of trustees, Trustees, is that going to make a difference? I think that they have brought a substantial discussion to the Clark County School District Board of Trustees. And they have, I think if you go into the community, you talk to parents and you talk to students, there's a lot more discussion that is focused on some of the policies that the Board of Trustees is considering and how it is we're educating students. And I think they've brought sort of another voice to the table. And I think that that is appreciated by parents and students who are watching a school board start to talk about some of the things that make a difference in those classrooms. And so this bill really is, as much as it is not a bill that is going to solve every issue in education, it really was a very concerted effort from many stakeholders to bring together different ideas and different things that we were hearing to try to put into a bill. Does that mean that everyone who is here today is going to love every piece of this bill? Absolutely not. Does it mean that there are good ideas here that we should definitely consider because it matters for accountability and it matters for that investment, and anytime we're spending public dollars, we should talk about what that looks like? Yes. And so in as much as that also relates to the second part of your question, sort of how we got here and why it is that there are some requirements for things like private schools, because they're receiving public dollars. Because when we looked at that interim finance committee hearing where one organization had taken all the money designed for all these other students, that was something that was, in my mind, unacceptable, right? Students who were relying on those dollars to be able to pursue their education in a way that is meaningful to them, I think is important. But I also think that we as a legislative body owe it to the people who have elected us, to the taxpayers, to make sure we're making good use of those dollars and allow us to have some insight into that data to make those determinations. When it comes to some of our charter schools, I know that there are concerns about requiring for them to show us some of the financial pieces and to have a little bit more input and insight. I think we should have these conversations. We shouldn't just have them every 2 years when a legislature shows up and has bills that deal with education. We should be having access to this data. We should be having those ongoing conversations, because I would bet that a lot of that data is going to show that our charter schools are doing an excellent job of educating our students. I think that, too, when we look at the data, there's a lot of public schools, right, district schools that are doing a great job of educating our students. And I think that in any way that a student finds themselves sitting in a classroom with someone teaching them where they feel inspired and they feel like they can get a good education, we should be investing in that. But I also don't think that it is too much to ask that there are accountability measures that come along with that, and that there's reporting that should accompany that, so that we can make those kinds of decisions that matter, so that we can say this is a good investment, and so that we can actually see all of the many ways in which so many students are thriving and so many teachers are doing a great job, and those support staff that support them are doing a great job. And so I think that this bill endeavors to do that. And I think that that should be true across the board. And that's why there are provisions that don't just relate to our district public schools, but relate across the board to the many choices that students and parents do have in Nevada to attain a quality education.
Thank you, Senator Danyante. Any other questions from the committee members? Okay, seeing none. Madam Majority Leader and co-presenters, will invite you to please, I was going to say sit back, but I don't know if there are enough chairs, so yes, over here, please, if you would step back, and we will, again, just as a reminder, I know that was a big presentation. I know there are many here that want to be involved in conversations. If someone's coming already, remember, 30 minutes on support, 30 minutes on opposition, and 30 minutes on neutral. So please, at this time, we're looking for any support testimony. We stop the time in between. So if we do this right, we ought to hear from at least 15 people on each side. Okay, and let me say this to the students who are here. We really do want to hear from you, so thank you for being here, students. Students are always special guests in these committees. They're waving. Oh, that's cute. See, special guests. Okay, please go right ahead. And remember, state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Thank you, Chair Taylor, committee members. Marie Nices, M-A-R-I-E-N-E-I-S-E-S-S, President of CCEA. Thank you for your continued commitment to strengthening public education in Nevada. We sincerely appreciate the work accomplished during the 2023 legislative session and the historic investment in our schools. We also sincerely thank Majority Leader Canizero for advancing this critical work through the Education Act. Her leadership and collaboration with CCA have been instrumental in moving critical improvements forward. While we are encouraged and look forward to working with Superintendent Ebert, we must acknowledge the significant challenges plaguing CCSD in recent years. We cannot allow history to repeat itself. The accountability provisions in SB 460 are necessary to ensure all stakeholders from district leadership to educators are held responsible for student outcomes. Requiring a strategic plan to improve academic achievement is essential to increasing student achievement. Accountability at every level of the education system is crucial. We note that the leadership tone set by principals shapes the working environment and directly impacts teacher effectiveness and student success. SB 460 establishes key accountability measures and enhances transparency tools critical in helping education staff implement clear, accountable plans to support our most vulnerable students. Equally important, we must continue to address teacher vacancies. The number one success indicator outside of a student's family is having a fully licensed teacher. SB 460 continues the critical work of recruiting and retaining educators in our most underserved schools by providing additional compensation. The salary increases passed through SB 231 last session have significantly reduced vacancies and improved staffing stability. SB 460 builds on that success, ensuring we continue to moving in the right direction. We sincerely thank the majority leader for allocating funding for teacher salaries. We strongly urge your support for SB 460 for the future of our students and the health of our public education system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tom Clark. That's T-O-M-C-L-A-R-K. I'm here on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Boards, very much in support of Senate Bill 460. When we were first presented with the bill, we wrote up about a 6-page memo of thoughts and changes and ideas that we had regarding the bill. We met with the senator and her team and had a very good conversation. And when we saw the amendment, about 90% of what we asked for had been addressed. And that's a lot to ask on a bill this comprehensive. And so for those reasons, we believe that this is a very balanced piece of legislation between urban and rural, between public and charter, with all of the different stakeholders that are at play. We very much support the amended version of Senate Bill 460. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Please, Dean Eastbrook.
Hi, my name is Donald Easton Brooks. You may spell all that out. D-O-N-A-L-D. EASTON-BROOKS. I'm the Dean of the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Nevada, Reno. First of all, I would like to thank Majority Leader for sponsoring this bill. As a College of Education, our role in PK-12 is to assist in reducing the achievement gap and to provide quality teachers who can improve academic outcomes of our students. In addition to our traditional programs that we have that attract students, our university has hired a recruiter who is specifically there to target those who are interested in teaching or to gain interest in those who are interested in teaching. We also offer a special education alternative licensure program, especially for teachers who are licensed in teaching autism. We also have an innovative program, Nevada Teach, which is designed to focus on getting more STEM-related teachers into the classroom. And we also have a pathway program that's part of our academic academy, which is the pathway program to get high school students to think about education in high school. So they take 2 classes in high school that are college-related classes, dual credit classes, to prepare them for teaching. Over the past 3 years, we have graduated over 500 teachers out of our program. In addition to this, 2 days ago, we graduated another 125 students. What we find is that 80% of the students that graduate from our university tend to teach in Washoe County. Another 10% teach in Northern Nevada, so we're very active in Northern Nevada with our graduates. The university has initially admitted about 520 new teachers students who are interested in teacher education. This is up over the last year. Of these 520, we have 246 that have been admitted, and to this point, we have 145 that have been enrolled so far.
Dean Eastonbrook, I'm so sorry to cut you off, sir, but you are out of time.
All right.
But
So
what you can do is...
we support.
Thank you so much. But you can send your comments in to our committee staff, and then we'll make sure we'll all get them. Thank you so much for being here, Dean. We appreciate you.
No problem.
Good to see you. Okay, we're going to go to 3 in Las Vegas. 3 in Las Vegas. Remember, no more than 2 minutes each, and then we will start with whomever is there first. And don't forget to state your name.
Greetings, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Matt Niswonger, Nighswonger. I'm the Vice President of CCA. I'm here today to speak in favor of SB 460. As a teacher myself, I'm in full support of holding us accountable. We as classroom teachers have never backed down from this. Students are going to come to my classroom, be safe, and learn. It happens every school year, and I promise it will happen again next year. Now we need to make sure that districts and schools are truly working towards the goal of increasing student achievement. Teachers at every grade level are frustrated that we have to simply pass along students to the next grade level. Elementary teachers don't want to send students to middle school who can't read. Middle school teachers don't want to send students to high school who can't do math. And high school teachers hate sending students to college who aren't able to comprehend the academic skills needed at the post-secondary level. CCSD over the last several years has shown that they are not focused on student proficiency. We have to force them to focus on this, or our students won't get the education they deserve. We need to make sure that CCSD is making proficiency goals for all students at all levels. And then we have to follow up and ensure students are making progress toward those goals. Once these goals are established, CCSD needs to be required to provide training and resources for teachers to help students reach these goals. We cannot assume CCSD will do any of this. They continue to show that they have not been working towards raising students' proficiency levels. We need this legislation to mandate that CCSD do this. With clear expectations and adequate resources, teachers and schools can then work on making strides in raising proficiency levels. We know that the students in CCSD and throughout Nevada deserve this kind of focus. Hold the school districts accountable, and that your schools and educators get to work on improving education in Nevada. CCSD would like to thank Majority Leader Canizero for her leadership on this issue. I ask you to support Senate Bill 460. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Niceholder. We'll go to whomever's next in Las Vegas.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor, members of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Galdino Griego, Griego, and I'm a special education teacher in CCSD and a proud CCA member. I'm here to express support for Senate Bill 460, the Educate Act. SB 460 is important because it reinforces accountability between school districts and the state, ensuring that legislative measures are effectively implemented as intended. A clear example highlighting the need for such accountability occurred during the 23 legislative session, where legislators passed historic investment in education. Despite the state allocating significant funds to improve educator compensation, CCSD delayed distributing these funds as intended, resulting in educators like myself and many others working without an updated contract for several months. This delay had direct consequences, not only for existing educators, but also for the potential hires. Because there was no finalized contract, we were unable to recruit effectively during the critical hiring window, and we lost qualified candidates to districts that could offer clarity and competitive pay up front. This not only hurt educators, but our students who could have desperately used them. SB 460's establishment of state intervention authority would help prevent such instances by allowing timely and appropriate oversight to ensure that districts follow through with legislative intent, especially when it affects funding tied to teacher retention and recruitment, which can help put an educator in every classroom. Issues critical to student development and learning. By passing the SB 460, Nevada can ensure legislative efforts are effectively enacted, thus directly benefiting educators and ultimately our students through enhanced accountability. I strongly urge you to support SB 460.
Thank you so much, Mr. Diego. Who's next in Las Vegas? And then we'll go to the phone lines.
Hello, my name is Erica Jackson. Last name is Jackson. Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of this committee. I am an elementary teacher in a Title I school in Clark County School District and a proud member of CCEA. I am here to specifically address a crucial element of accountability within Senate Bill 460, the provisions regarding the 3-year improvement plans for elementary schools. This aspect of the bill represents a significant step forward in ensuring that when schools are identified as needing support, the response is strategic, focused, and ultimately effective. SB 460 doesn't just label schools, it mandates a structured accountability process for improvement. The requirement for a comprehensive 3-year improvement plan is critical. This extended time frame acknowledges that meaningful change doesn't happen overnight. It necessitates a thoughtful and data-driven approach, compelling schools to conduct a deep dive into the specific challenges the school is facing, articulate a plan for improvement in student achievement that is monitored and evaluated, detail specific interventions and strategies the school will implement to propel academic progress, explain how resources will be strategically allocated to support and achieve academic progress, assess academic progress at regular intervals, allowing for course correction and adjustments as needed. Crucially, SB 460 doesn't leave these plans in a vacuum. The requirement for consequences for schools that fail to meet the goals outlined in their 3-year plan is a vital component of accountability. This ensures that the planning process is taken seriously and that there is a real impetus for change. The level of accountability in SB 460 underscores Nevada's commitment to ensuring that underperformance is not simply tolerated. SB 460 moves beyond short-term fixes and demands a sustained commitment to improvement coupled with real consequences for lack of progress. This is a crucial step in ensuring that all our students, regardless of their school's initial challenges, have the opportunity to receive a high-quality education. I urge your support for SB 460 and its commitment to strategic and
Thank you, Ms.
accountable
Jackson.
school improvement.
We need to move on. Thank you so much. AVH, we'll take 3 on the phones.
Thank you so much, Chair Taylor. To testify in support of Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller, please press star 6 to unmute.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Adrienne Santiago, and I serve Santiago, Santiago, and I serve as the Executive Director of Northern Nevada Literacy Council. I'm here today in support of Senate Bill 460, which seeks to revise provisions governing early childhood literacy and readiness accounts. Since 1978, NNLC has provided adult education programs that support not only the adult learners ages 16 and older, but the whole family. Over the past several years, we've had the privilege of implementing the Family Reading Program through the Early Childhood Literacy Innovative Program Eclipse grant administered by the Nevada Department of Education. This program has made a measurable impact in our community. With Eclipse funding, NNLC has served more than 1,000 parents and children, providing structured, literacy-rich environment where families can grow together. Our program pairs parents, of many of whom are English language learners, or working towards their high school equivalency with their children in a learning environment that emphasizes reading, vocabulary development, and parent engagement. These are families who may have never had a book in their home or who speak limited English. Through the Family Reading Program, they are not only learn how to read with their children, but begin to see themselves as their child's first and most important teacher. We've seen kindergarten readiness increase, family literacy improve, and generational cycles of limited education begin to break. All of our outcomes are tracked in the Nevada Department of Education's latest data system, with strong gains in both adult literacy and early childhood development indicators. Currently, NNLC's measurable skills gains is exceeding 46%, the state target of 46%, achieving 60% with more than 2 months still remaining in the fiscal year. More importantly, we've seen confidence grow in both parents and children, and we've watched families develop a love of reading together. Unfortunately, with the recent termination of the Eclipse grant effective June 30th, this transformative program is now at risk. Without continued investment, many of the families we serve will lose access to not only structured literacy programs they have outside the public school system. Senate Bill 460 offers hope. It reflects Nevada's recognition that early childhood begins at home and that supporting parents in their own education is one of the most effective ways.
Thank you, Miss Santiago. Miss Santiago, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but your time is up. Thank you so much. AVH, who's our next caller?
We have 2 more callers in the queue, Chair. 1 moment. Caller, please press star 6 to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits, 168. Please press star 6 to unmute. You did raise your hand. Caller must be experiencing a problem. I'll go ahead and move to the next caller. Caller with the last three digits, 489. Please press *6 to unmute. You are unmuted. Please proceed. And please ensure that you are unmuted on your phone as well.
Okay, I think I have it. Can you hear me all?
Yes, ma'am. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Monica Ford, last name Ford, and I'm speaking today on behalf of Rainbow Dreams Early Learning Academy, a culturally responsive early childhood program serving families in one of Nevada's most underserved communities. I want to express our strong support for the provisions in Senate Bill 460 that directly invest in early childhood literacy, readiness, and facility expansion particularly. Section 75, Section 73, Section 13. These proposed investments are not only timely, but transformational. Our community has long faced barriers to access, equity, and readiness in early education. Many of our scholars are children of color from low-income households who benefit immensely from programs like ours that offer both cultural identity and academic foundation. We urge the committee to move this bill forward and protect the integrity of these appropriations so that high-quality, community-rooted early education programs like Rainbow Dreams can continue to meet the growing needs of Nevada's youngest learners. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ford. AVH, were we able to get the other caller?
We are queuing them up one more time, Chair. Just a moment.
Thank you so much.
Caller with the last three digits, 168. Please press *6 to unmute. Caller, you are unmuted. Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
This is Demar Dahl, DEMARDAHL. I appreciate the opportunity to address the committee. I am a board member of a charter school in Elko, the Institute for the Elko Institute for Academic Achievement. It is a great school. We have on our waiting list twice as many kids as we are able to get in the school. We have just recently got ourselves a new building, and things are wonderful for our school and for charter schools. But I am disappointed about the Senate Bill 460 and that it diminishes the value of charter schools, and therefore I would urge you to vote against Senate Bill 460. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dahl. That was opposition testimony, so we'll do the math and balance that out. Okay, right back here to Carson City. Please go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Patricia Charlton, CHARLTON, Chancellor for the Nevada System of Higher Education, and she is in support of SB 460. We wish to thank the Majority Leader for this bill. This bill is a strong step forward in addressing Nevada's educator workforce challenges. The new Commission on Recruitment and Retention offers a strategic platform to allow our teacher preparation programs with the workforce needs. We also appreciate the bill's focus on data sharing. With better access to outcome data, our institutions can more effectively track performance, close gaps, and support teacher retention. Additionally, we support the teacher apprenticeship model and the proposed amendment language to pilot an alternative pathway for teacher licensure. Using competency-based assessments can open the door for qualified candidates who may not follow traditional routes, helping to broaden and diversify Nevada's teaching workforce. Thank you for your time, and we are supportive of this bill.
Thank you, Madam Chancellor. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Dylan Shaver with Pinion Public Affairs here on behalf of the Washoe County School District in support of Senate Bill 460. We WCSD heard from the Majority Leader's office, I want to say late summer, early fall of 2024, to say that she wanted to run a major education bill. And I wanted to take the opportunity we have here today to thank her for the collaborative effort in producing the bill and its amendments that you see before you today. As you all know, these are very intricate measures, and they have a lot of moving parts, and the Majority Leader and her team have been accessible to Washoe County School District, taking feedback and input the entire time this has been developed. And it's very appreciative from a local school district perspective. I'd be remiss not to point out that the Washoe County School District adopts a platform every fall going into a legislative session. Just a few highlights of that platform: extending the SB 231 funds, enhancing the teacher recruitment and retention pipeline, making an investment in pre-K so that learners show up in kindergarten ready to learn, and keeping the results focused on the students and their ability to succeed. This bill hits all of those pieces of the platform, and therefore we are happy to be here in support today.
Thank you so much. Please go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Paul Moratkin with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of SB 460, and we thank the Senate Majority Leader and her team for making efforts to solicit as much feedback as possible from stakeholders in the proposed bill and its amendment. Regarding the specifics of the bill, the Chamber believes several key provisions will result in greater accountability, a better return on investment of public dollars, and an increase in student achievement. Several sections of the bill the Chamber supports we would like to highlight, and including but not limited to the school improvement plans and principal accountability in Section 1, the creation of the School District Oversight Board in Section 9, the expansion of the voting rights for appointed school trustees in Section 10, the grants for literacy support in Section 13, the commission recruitment in Sections 37 and 38, the hiring requirements in Sections 47, the funding for the Nevada Registered Teacher Appropriation Account in Sections 69 and 70, the raises for school teachers, both district and charter, in Section 76. We believe these are monumental and very important efforts by the Majority Leader to build a comprehensive plan. And we do recognize, of course, there may be some additional modifications and clarifications to the bill, but we look forward to the final bill. Again, we appreciate her efforts to bring a comprehensive bill forward today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Moratkin. We'll go to Las Vegas. We'll take 3 there. Please go right ahead when you're ready.
Greetings, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Sarah Ross, R-O-S-S, and I'm a social studies teacher and the International Baccalaureate Program Coordinator at Historic Valley High School, a Title I site in Vegas's urban core. I'm also a CCEA member. I'm here to speak in support of Senate Bill 460. SB 460 ensures there's an appropriate ratio of teachers to administrators in schools. Since the 21-22 school year, the number of assistant principals in CCSD schools has increased by 30%. At the same time, we continue to have a significant teacher vacancy issue, which takes a compounding toll on student achievement. I've seen firsthand the impact of teacher vacancies. Last year at Valley High School, not a single 9th grade English classroom was staffed by a licensed teacher. That means 600 students in an already high-need community lost 1 year of instructional time in reading and writing. Thankfully, the tide turned when the legislature made an investment in high-vacancy schools with SB 231. This year, Valley's English classrooms are fully staffed with licensed teachers. Thanks to the expertise of these educators, students are progressing rapidly, as shown in standardized test scores. Without teachers last year, the percentage of students reading at or above grade level increased by only 0.5% over the course of the year. However, now taught by licensed teachers, the percentage of these same students reading at or above grade level increased by 10% in just a 3-month period. This brings to life what study after study has shown, that among school-related factors, licensed teachers matter most in increasing student achievement. We're all here today because we share responsibility for improving student outcomes. By supporting SB 460, you can take a critical step toward putting students first and ensuring that every student has a licensed educator in the classroom. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Who's next down in Las Vegas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Jessica Jones, Jones. I'm a kindergarten teacher down here in Clark County School District. I also serve as the Secretary of the Clark County Education Association. I'm here to support Senate Bill 460, and I'm going to be speaking to the section of the bill which prioritizes filling classroom positions and the importance of the accountability at the school sites for her school administrators. Accountability for student outcomes begins with a licensed teacher in every classroom and also with strong leadership at the school. Administrators are responsible for effectively managing staff, overseeing our instruction, and monitoring school data. When our leadership is weak and classroom vacancies go unfilled, unfortunately, our students suffer and their achievement suffers as well. I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I see firsthand how critical the early years of learning are because elementary schools lay the foundation for all learning. In many CCSD schools, you'll often see kindergarten, first and second grade classrooms have vacancies. Instead of being taught by licensed educators, many young students are often placed into classrooms with long-term substitutes, and they may lack the training to teach foundational skills in both English language arts and mathematics. That can create a domino effect because when foundational learning is missed, those students are going to struggle for years to catch up. At my Title I, Tier 1, one-star school, this is a very real issue. 3 years ago, my school had very high vacancies and many long-term substitutes. In my kindergarten grade level, we were allocated for 5 positions, but only had 3 teaching positions filled by teachers, and our class sizes ballooned up to 25 to 27 students in a classroom. Our principal chose that year to keep 4 strategists and decided it would be her idea to add a second assistant principal. These are all positions that are outside of the classroom, and when educators at my school raised concerns with her, we were told that those roles were more important and needed to support the substitutes than filling the vacancies in the classrooms. So, because of my administrator's ineffective staffing decision that school year, both the educators and our students were struggling. We had incredibly large class sizes across the board, and unfortunately, 3 educators left our school. Of those 3, 2 left the profession entirely. That year, our growth on test scores sold. The following year, English language arts scores
Miss
dropped.
Jones, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but your time is up, ma'am. But you can send your comments
thank
to the
you.
committee staff, and she'll make sure we get them. Thank you so much. One more down in Las Vegas, and then we'll go to the phone lines. We have about 7 minutes left.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Sandra Kupfer, Kupfer, and I'm an educator at Johnston STEM Academy in Las Vegas. I've been a proud member of CCA for 25 years, and I'm here to testify in strong support of SB 460 and to underscore the critical importance of accountability at the school site level, especially for administrators. Accountability for student outcomes must begin where students learn every day, at the school site. Principals and school leaders play a vital role in shaping school culture, setting instructional priorities, and ensuring that all students are supported and challenged. I have personally worked in more than one school where inadequate leadership has affected the students and their learning. In these schools, there was a high rate of teacher turnover, which directly relates to the shaping of poor school culture. Teacher turnover does not provide the students with consistency, and that leads to schools not being able to have a successful year upon which to build. Having a high percentage of teachers new to the building every year means that school is consistently starting at square one, which is holding both the teachers and the students back. This prevents students from being successful. Yearly changes in staff members creates an unstable learning environment for the students, and this directly hinders their academic development and results in students not being motivated to learn. When we hold administrators accountable for student progress, we enforce the expectation that leadership matters and that our schools must be centers of excellence and equity. Principals who lack educational leadership are not consistent with educational practices. I've worked in schools where we start the school year with an educational vision, and then after the first month of school, we never hear of it again. That's when new random programs that the administration likes are given to us to use, and oftentimes the programs may not be aligned with student needs or our learning standards. We have little to no guidance or training with these programs, so it may not be implemented effectively, which directly leads to test scores not increasing as they were anticipated to. It is the role of the administrator to guide student outcomes through instruction and monitoring data. That means guiding the staff members too.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cup. So your time is up, but we appreciate your coming out. Okay, AVH,
Thank
we'll
you.
go to the phone lines.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, to testify in support to Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no additional callers in support at this time.
Thank you so much, AVH. We'll come right back here to Carson City. We have 5 minutes remaining. Go ahead. And it's okay to say ditto, by the way.
Thank you, Madam Chair,
Go right
members of the
ahead.
committee. For the record, Kelly Crompton, representing the city of Las Vegas. We support many measures within the bill, including investment in early childhood, enhancements to accountability, and empowering members of the board appointed by the local jurisdictions. We thank the bill sponsor for bringing it forward, and we thank her for helping to improve our communities.
Thank you so much. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor. Kayla Mayese for the record, Kaylahmaese, Civil Rights Analyst with the ACLU of Nevada. ACLU of Nevada is testifying in support of this bill. We appreciate Majority Leader Canizaro's willingness to engage in thoughtful discussion with our team regarding this bill as we continue to remain forced to sue school districts because of improper oversight and other issues. We look forward to continuing to work collaboratively with the Majority Leader moving forward to address any outstanding issues and other concerns. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Massey. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Nicole Rourke, representing the city of Henderson. We're here in support of SB 460 and support many of the provisions in the bill, specifically sections 9 for school district oversight and section 10. Specifically, want to thank the majority leader for her recognition of the value that the appointed trustees have added to the board, and by having that value and having that important voice by giving them voting rights. And so we really appreciate that section, as well as all the support for early childhood education and many other provisions of the bill. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Work. We'll go to Las Vegas. Please go ahead when you're ready. We have 3 minutes left. I'm no mathematician, but that's a minute apiece.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Adler, ADLER, and I'm a 27-year veteran educator of the Clark County School District and executive board member of CCEA, and I'm here to speak in support of SB 460. Accountability, achievement, and growth are 3 key components of the many of our education bills this session. SB 231 was successful in filling vacancies in our most at-need schools and in the areas of special education. However, investments cannot be made without expectations of measurable achievement within a reasonable amount of time. This is what SB 460 seeks to do. Every classroom deserves a full licensed teacher, and educational improvement plans must be developed, implemented, and reviewed on a regular basis to ensure that goals and benchmarks have been attained. Students should not graduate if they are not proficient in reading, math, and writing. At a minimum, in addition, consideration for special populations, including but not limited to students with special education needs and students who are emergent bilinguals, must be enrolled in a program that is research-based and designed for the population they serve. Parents understand the importance of literacy for their children, but may not have the access or means to provide what their children need to be school ready. This is where early childhood education literacy readiness programs are a necessary foundation for the success of our children beginning from the moment they enter schools. My parents and I have spent a cumulative 59 years in CCSD working in the areas of early childhood bilingual ed, middle and high school English as a second language, and high school special ed and administration of special ed and homebound services. I feel that I'm well versed in understanding and implementing effective research-based programs from pre-K through post-secondary, which is why SB 460 contains the recommendations needed to hold all stakeholders accountable with mechanisms to oversee all programs and systems to ensure the success and growth of progress for our students in Nevada. I encourage you to vote in favor of this bill, continue what we have started, and we thank Majority Leader Canizaro for championing this important bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adler. We have time for one more down in Las Vegas because we have 1 minute left. Please go right ahead. I don't know who was there first, but please, whoever was there first, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Sherry Griggs, Griggs, and I'm an 11-year employee of the Clark County School District and currently serving as a Title I pre-K teacher at the James B. McMillan Elementary School. I'm also proud to be an 11-year member of the Clark County Education Association, and I come before you today in support of SB 460. SB 460 addresses an appropriate ratio of teachers to administrators in our public schools, where there has been 30% increase in the number of assistant principals in the Clark County School District. Teacher vacancies remain high. So much is discussed regarding teacher accountability and how teachers are solely responsible for their students' achievements. There are many classrooms within CCSD without a trained licensed educator. Personally, I'm familiar with some special education classes that have not had licensed teacher for a few years. One class in particular is a STAR class, or Schools Targeting Alternative Reform, where the students have not had any significant instruction for the last few years because of how the class has been staffed. There was a licensed teacher who was separated from the district after several physical assaults. She was replaced by random rotation of subs, learning strategists, and even building administrators, and this rotation was usually an hour-by-hour event. There were no consistency in instruction or classroom management, yet these students were expected to excel on MAP and SBAC assessments. Without a fully qualified teacher in every classroom, student achievement is sacrificed. The number of administrators within schools in CCSD has increased significantly since 2021-2022. Choices have been made to fill administrative positions instead of increasing the number of teachers working with students in the classroom. Teachers have no problem with accountability, but it is a shared responsibility. Please support SB 460 so that addressing teacher vacancies can lead to a licensed teacher in every classroom. Our children, our future leaders, deserve this from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Griggs. And that will conclude our time for support testimony. So we thank the two of you for coming forward. We know your names. We'll have it in our minds. Okay, now we'll have 30 minutes of opposition testimony. I love these kids. They're like, I'm getting it in. No, I appreciate your enthusiasm, your willingness to come forward, and way to be ready and get up here first. Okay, we'll have 30 minutes, so please just state your name and remember to spell your last name for the record, okay? Okay, please go right ahead.
Hello, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Dondero Loop, and members of the Senate Education Committee. My name is Benjamin Martins, M-A-R-T-E-N-S, and I'm an 8th grader at Doral Academy of Northern Nevada. I'm here today to oppose SB 460 because it would seriously harm charter schools like mine. I've attended both traditional, public, and charter schools, and I've chosen not to go to a Washoe County School District high school because of my past experiences in that system. As you can see from my data sheet, that is titled Public Schools Compared to Charter Schools. Charter school students perform consistently better than public school students. Charter schools offer unique, personalized education. In my experience, every teacher I've had truly knows their students and helps us succeed. At Doral, our principal invested in the CERT program to challenge high-achieving students. Thanks to that support, I was accepted into Davidson Academy, a goal I couldn't reach while I was in a public school. Charter schools work because they're allowed to innovate. Schools like mine include arts integration, dual enrollment, and other programs to serve diverse students, including Title I kids. Over 70% of SPCSA schools are rated 3 stars or higher, while only 42% of Washoe County School District schools meet that mark. SB 460 would take away the autonomy that makes charter schools effective. It could block raises for teachers, reduce personalized learning, and hand control back to large districts. That puts students like me at risk. Please vote no on SB 460. I'm Benjamin Martins, and I'm proud to be a student at Doral Academy of Northern Nevada. Thank you.
That is clear, Mr. Martins. Thank you very much. Please go right ahead.
Hello, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Dondero Loop, and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Zachary Ableser, Z-A-C-H-A-R-Y-A-B-L-E-S-E-R. I'm a student at Doral Academy of Northern Nevada. I'm in 5th grade, and my family is a founding family at Doral, which means we have been going to the school ever since it opened. I'm here today in opposition of SB 460 because your bill is hurting our school, our teachers, and most importantly, our students. I love our school because our teachers care about us. They try to give us the best day at school every day. The teachers are passionate about loving their students. At Doral, our specials are the real deal. For example, in music class, we learned how to play violin this year. For art, there's a class for everything. And my 7th grade sister recently just dissected a sheep brain. SB 460 would reduce the type of teachers we might have for these specials. This is harmful to kids' education. The school has a super strict no bullying policy, and there is a strong system in place to make that happen. I ran on the track team this year in 5th grade, and the older students were kind and encouraging to the younger students. Our Doral sports teams are strong, fun, and give students great life skills. I'm here in opposition of SB 460 because all of these great things I just told you about Doral would be taken away. I am Zachary Ableser from Doral Academy of Northern Nevada. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ableser. We will not hold your father against you in this either. Well, thank you so much. Please go right ahead.
Hello, my name is Reagan Farley, F-A-R-L-E-Y,
and I go to Oasis Academy Charter School in Fallon, Churchill County. I've been going to Oasis since I was in kindergarten. I love my school and the close friends I have there. I really feel like the teachers, staff, and counselors care about me. I like how we have small class sizes. That helps our education more. And more one-on-one small group time with our teachers. This Senate bill concerns me because it threatens equity of education choices for all students. My family and other charter school families deserve educational freedom, support, and respect for their decisions. Our teachers in school do not deserve to be cut out on funding. We do not deserve criticism, control at the hands of greedy politicians. My school and other charter schools should not be a pawn in politics, a political game, where privacy and students' our rights are at risk. My school teaches us how to handle conflict resolution and compromise. I ask that all lawmakers work with Governor Lombardo to protect school choice and invest in all students, no matter where or how they learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Farley. We'll go to Las Vegas. We'll take 3 in Las Vegas, and then we'll go to the phone lines. Please go right ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Chair Taylor and members of the Senate Committee on Education. My name is Anna Hitbachshetyan. For the record, that is ANAHITBAGHSHETSYN, and I'm a research assistant at Nevada Policy. Today, we come in strong opposition to SB 460. There are several reasons, and I'm going to try to condense them into 1 minute so we can hear from the people who it's going to affect the most. First and foremost, investing in a pre-K education and universal pre-K systems might not be the most sound policy in the times where our K through 12 is failing. I think there are more prominent places where money should go to, and investing in pre-K does not necessarily prove successful results for all the kids. Second, creating a school district oversight board is definitely a commendable approach. However, accepting it from an
Why don't we go to the phone lines, and then we'll come back in Las Vegas, and hopefully we can go ahead and pick her up. AVH, do we have anyone on the phone line in opposition? Yeah, we don't have A.V. Bueller, right? No.
They said standby.
Okay, we're on standby, so we'll just hold for just a moment, okay? No one go away. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and hopefully we'll have our technology lined up again. 5-minute recess. This doesn't have any calories. As opposed to fat pop.
Class is back in order.
Okay, let's get going again. Thank you for that delay. We're back in session, and we'll go right back down to Las Vegas. And I believe that was our first testimony from Las Vegas, and we lost. If you're still there, you can please come forward. The young woman who gave the first testimony. Okay, yeah, that's true.
Hello.
Thank you so much. And why don't we start over? Give us your name, but can you give it a little bit slower this time?
Yes, this is always my problem. Sorry.
It's okay.
Chair Taylor and members of the Senate Committee on Education, my name is Anahit Baghshetyan. For the record, that is ANAHIT BAGHSHETSYAN. And I'm a policy analyst at Nevada Policy. Today, Nevada Policy comes in strong opposition of SB 460, and while the intent of the bill is commendable, I'm going to try once again to keep this short so we can hear from those who are affected by this the most. First and foremost, investing in pre-K is very important. However, universal pre-K investments right now at the state where our K-12 is failing are truly debatable, and I don't think this should be our priority in this legislative session. Second, by the creation of School District Oversight Board, although a commendable policy, we are exempting it from open meeting law according to the bill as drafted, and I believe that defeats the purpose of transparency and accountability that the bill is chasing, as we heard in the presentation. Second, there's a very big overarching limitations imposed on charter schools, specifically in Section 22, where charter applications or extensions of charter contracts can be denied based on efficiency. Efficiency is rather subjective, and this allows a vague room of denying charter school applications and denying charter expansions. Same goes to hiring practices and more other expansion opportunities. And the exact same limitations are imposed on opportunity scholarships. So this bill fundamentally fails to recognize one single thing, that is, school choice is not the problem. It is part of the solution. And by limiting the alternative choices that Nevadan families and students might have, we are effectively limiting the successful future for our state. And for those reasons, we urge your opposition on the measure today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for coming back up. Next in Las Vegas, please go ahead.
Dear members of the committee, my name is Carla De Leon, spelled Karladeeleon, and I'm here today to respectfully voice my opposition to SB 460. This bill requires students receiving the Opportunity Scholarship to take the same state-mandated test as public school students, even though they already take nationally recognized assessments that are appropriate for their environments and curriculum. As someone who directly benefited from this Opportunity Scholarship, I am deeply concerned with how this bill will hurt students like me. I was assigned to a public school that did not meet my needs. I was overwhelmed, unsupported, and lost. I begged my parents to switch me out of the school that I was in, and they did everything they could to help me succeed, but at the moment, private school just wasn't an option. That was until we discovered the Opportunity Scholarship. With that support, I was able to attend a private school where I thrived. I learned way better in a smaller classroom, participated in about every sport that they had to offer, and maintained a high GPA through it all. I received an education that truly prepared me for the future. The assessments I took with my private school clearly reflected what I was learning and showed my progress with challenging, thought-provoking questions. Imposing public school tests on private school students undermines the very reason that families like mine choose a different educational path. Private schools often use different curriculum and teaching styles, so forcing these state tests on Opportunity Scholarship students puts them at risk for being forced back into a system that didn't work for them in the first place. This is about opportunity for these families. These students are already being tested in meaningful ways. Additionally, mismatched assessments will not help them. It'll only hinder their progress. So please protect Nevada students and reject SB 460. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. De Leon. Please, next in Las Vegas, and then we'll go to the phone lines.
Dear members of the committee, my name is Carlos De Leon, CarlosDeleon. I'm here today to respectfully voice my opposition to SB 460. I'm a proud father of 3 children, all whom have benefited from Opportunity Scholarships. These scholarships have allowed my kids to attend private school, and the difference of their education has been day and night. My oldest daughter has attended public school from kindergarten through 4th grade. She often got bored in class And when we spoke to one of the teachers, she told us, and this is a public school, you need to go look another type of school for Carla. We don't have any programs to help her here. She's ahead of everything, and this school can't support her growth anymore. That same year, I learned about Opportunity Scholarship Program, and we didn't hesitate to apply. Thanks to the scholarship, she transferred to a private school, and everything changed. Her attitude improved, her grades stayed straight A's, and she transformed into a confident, secure young woman. She graduated with the highest GPA in her class and graduated valedictorian 2024, homecoming queen, cheer captain, student body president, and participated in volleyball, softball, cheerleading, and went to state championships. For 4 years, she also received the Christian Character Award. Today, she speaks confidently in public and advocates for students like her. My son also started public school from kindergarten through first grade. He struggled with focusing in class, but once he moved to a private school through the scholarship, he made remarkable progress. He's now in 10th grade and generally enjoys going to school. He's active in sports, playing football, basketball, wrestling, and track. He was recently named Student of the Month, and his teachers are amazed by how much he has grown and improved.
Mr. De Leon, I'm sorry, sir. Mr. De Leon, your time is up, but we appreciate you coming out, and please feel free to send your comments in to staff, and they'll make sure the committee gets them. Thank you so much in Las Vegas. We'll come back there if we can. We will now go to the phone lines, and we have about 18 and a half minutes left. AVH?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Kimberly Fergus, Fergus, and I'm here to strongly oppose SB 460, a bill that is nothing more than a union-driven power grab cloaked in educational reform. SB 460 imposes unfunded mandates in sections 14, 15, and 34, forcing school districts to comply with costly staffing ratios and counselor requirements without a single dollar of state funding. This is a financial malpractice, placing an undue burden on already struggling districts, all while teachers' unions stand to gain. Section 9 is perhaps the most egregious overreach, establishing a school district oversight board with unchecked authority and exempting it from open meeting law. This board can make far-reaching decisions in silence, secret, and silencing parents in secret, taxpayers, and the public. SB 460 also targets charter schools and school choice by restricting critical resources to within district boundaries, effectively shutting charter schools out of the incentive programs and apprenticeship funding. Meanwhile, it converts a non-voting trustee in Clark County to a voting position, further consolidating union power. This bill isn't about academic achievement, it's about political control. It's about eroding transparency, advancing union agendas, and squeezing out school choice. It's a direct attack on charter schools, a slap in the face to taxpayers, and a complete disregard for educational freedom. SB 460 is biased, physically irresponsible power grab that must be rejected. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for your call. AVH, who's next?
Thank you, Chair. Queuing up the next caller.
Yes, hello. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
CYRUS HOJJ. Yes, CYRUS HOJJATY. I respect the efforts of these bill sponsor. We need to improve schooling, but I will have to reject the bill the way it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Next caller, please, and then we'll come back to Carson C.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and committee. My name is Jim DeGraffenreid, Nevada's Republican National Committee man, and I'm here today in opposition to SB 460. Many of my points have already been made, but I wanted to add additional information regarding Section 10 of the bill, which gives appointed board members voting rights. Appointed board members were authorized under Assembly Bill 175 last session after similar bills had failed in 4 previous sessions. The original language called for appointed members to be voting members, but that was amended to make them non-voting members as a way to get the bill passed. In the Senate hearing on AB 175 on May 8, 2023, the bill sponsor stated, quote, as originally drafted, AB 175 altered the balance between elected and appointed board members by adding appointed positions to the school boards. However, the most vocal concern raised regarding the suggested structure was that the proposed bifurcation would dilute the voice of democracy. Recognizing and acknowledging that as a valid concern, we amended AB 175 to make the additional appointed board members non-voting positions, end quote. That was just 2 years ago. We have to ask what has changed to cause such a hard push to give appointed members voting rights. First, AB 195 was introduced this session to give appointed members voting rights. After that bill died, its language was amended into AB 156, which has also died, and now SB 460 is trying to give appointed members voting rights by burying them in a 100-plus page omnibus bill. I urge committee members to go back and read the extensive and detailed discussion about voting by appointed members in the last session, particularly the valid concerns raised by members of the committee on both sides of the aisle. I don't think anything has changed to make those concerns invalid. We have serious concerns over having unaccountable appointed voting members on local school boards, and for this reason, as well as the others stated, we ask you to reject AB 460. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your call. We'll come back here to Carson City, and we have about 14 minutes left. So please, I think you were here for whomever was here first. Please go ahead. Oh, please go right ahead.
Hello, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Dondero Loop, and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Kyla Kepler, Kyla I'm a 4th grader at Doral Academy of Northern Nevada. I'm here today in opposition of SB 460. I've been attending Doral for 5 years, and it is a wonderful public charter schools. All of the teachers are so knowledgeable, and they help me with anything I need, even if it's not schoolwork related. The teachers at my school are not just my teachers, they are my friends. Even though they are working just as hard as other public school teachers, SB 460 would make it so that they would not receive the same raises. This is unfair. At my school, we have amazing specials like art, media, PE, and music. If SB 460 passes, we could lose these classes because it would require all teachers to have traditional license, but many of our teachers are industry experts. Their real-world experience makes learning meaningful. They shouldn't be pushed out just because they don't have a license. Looking towards the future and where I will attend high school, the hope is that Doral will open a high school. However, if SB 460 passes, there will be no chance of that. I will be forced to attend a lower achieving high school in the local school district. My education is the foundation of my future. Again, I am here today in opposition of SB 460 because I hope that you will see that all kids deserve an education that sparks their imagination. I hope I was able to show you that my school is different from any other public school because of the unique opportunities that we are given. Thank you for your time. My name is Kyla Kepler, and I go to Doral Academy.
Thank you, Ms. Kepler. Please go right ahead.
Hello, members of the Education Committee. Oh, sorry.
Hold on, we haven't started your time yet. It's okay. Right, you good? Okay, all right. Please go ahead.
Hello, members of the Education Committee and Madam Chair. My name is Colton Brown, for the record, ColtonBrown. I'm here today to respectfully voice my strong opposition on SB 460. It will hurt charter schools and hurt students on the Opportunity Scholarship. I want that to be very clear. Students will be hurt who are on the Opportunity Scholarship. I may be a child, but I'm a student. I spend 6 hours in the classroom, 3 hours studying for school 5 days a week. Overall, my life is spent at school. For 6 years, I've been attending the public high school, or the public education system here in Washoe County, starting in Carson City. And one thing I've learned is education is one size fits all. You may agree with me. And for some of us, the traditional education system does not work. That's why this bill and school choice matters so much for students. In elementary school and middle school, I was bullied at my assigned schools to the point where I no longer felt safe and I no longer wanted to continue going to school. But in 8th grade, I found a school that fit me, Matter Academy in Northern Nevada. This is a charter school in Northern Nevada where it met my needs. It met my educational needs, where I could thrive in an environment that is meant for me individually and so many other students. Sadly, Matter Academy did not have any higher education going into high school. I had to go back to my assigned high school, North Valley's High School in the Washoe County School District, where I returned feeling unsafe. At Matter Academy, I was a straight A student, honor roll student for the first time. At North Valley's High School, I went back to low grades because I wasn't worried about school. I was worried about, am I safe? Today, about 7,000 students, or 70,000 students attend charter schools, and 1,600 participants in the private schools thanks to the Opportunity Scholarship. SB 460 would put that in danger, and it would hurt our schools and hurt the opportunities for us all. Am I out of time?
Yes, you are.
All right. Well, thank you, and I strongly oppose this bill, and I hope you will vote against it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Please go right ahead.
Hello, Chair Taylor and members of the Senate Education Committee. My name is Hayes Kramer. I'm in the 5th grade and I go to Doral Academy of Northern Nevada, a tuition-free public charter school. I have ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and autism. I have found my home at an incredible charter school. I am here today to oppose SB 460 because it takes away from everything that makes my school great and from the teachers that have been transformative in helping me become my best self. Before Doral, I can assure you I would have not been able to speak before you all today. Where I can see where some of this bill is well intended, the reality is that the bill is unfair to charter schools. It makes it harder for teachers to get paid fairly, which could lead to amazing teachers choosing to leave education altogether. My parents both went to public schools, but they wanted me to attend a private school. Before my kindergarten year, I attended a summer program to help me transition. Private school is supposed to be better, but they wanted me to repeat preschool and told my parents that kids like me tend to self-eliminate. They didn't even give me a chance. At Doral, I was welcomed and given the tools to succeed. I make straight A's. I just passed my gifted screener. I run cross country, and with my teacher's help, I'm taking the lead in helping my school start recycling. Me, the kid who wasn't going to cut it at a private school, is now thriving at a public charter school. One day I plan to go to college and become an electrical engineer, and it all started at Doral. Most of all, I love my special education programs. If SB 460 passes, I worry these programs in my school could be taken away. That would make me really sad. Please don't take away any of the opportunities that help students like me grow and succeed. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Okay, we are going to go to Las Vegas. We'll take 3 there. Looks like we have about 9 minutes left. Please go ahead.
Chair and Senate Committee on Education, my name is Jill Douglas, Douglass. I rise in strong opposition to SB 460 because it limits parental rights, the fundamental rights of parents to choose the best learning environment for their children at a time when Nevadans overwhelmingly support school choice. While this bill may be well-intentioned, as a whole, it's very lengthy, full of government overreach and unfunded mandates. Throughout this legislative session, I've heard lawmakers reference what other states are doing. Let's talk about that, because more than half the states in America have passed school choice legislation. The highest performing districts in the nation are embracing school choice and empowering parents with real options. Why? Because children learn differently. One size fits all doesn't work. Parents deserve the freedom to choose the school that best meets their child's needs, and the funding should follow the student. Real reform means competition, and competition raises the bar for everyone. The data is clear. Students thrive when parents choose and the government steps aside. SB 460 does the opposite. It expands state control over educational alternatives. It grants school districts more power to block charter schools, despite the fact that 70,000 Nevada students are served by public charter schools. Just as we experienced last session, the voice of Nevadans is being drowned out by the demands of the teachers union. SB 460 would force Opportunity Scholarship recipients to take state tests, even though they already take nationally recognized assessments. This undermines the very reason parents choose alternative options. To be clear, SB 460 adds red tape. It wrongly gives voting rights to non-elected board members. It discourages private school participation and doubles down on district power. This is not reform. This is regression. Our students deserve better. Our parents deserve a voice. Nevadans deserve real reform, not union-driven policy that prioritizes systems over students. Please vote no on SB 40. Listen to the parents, listen to the children, empower families, and put children first. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Douglas. Who's next in Las Vegas?
Good afternoon, Chair and member of the committee. My name is Daniel Reyes, Daniel Reyes for the record, and I'm here today to speak against SB 460 because it pushes a one-size-fits-all approach to education, and that same approach failed me. From 1st through 5th grade, I went to public school where I consistently fell behind. I asked for help, went to tutoring, and still struggled. My teachers focused on the kids who already understood the lessons, and while I really wanted to succeed, the system simply wasn't built for me. What changed my life was the Nevada Opportunity Scholarship, which allowed me to attend Mountain View Christian School. In just 1 month, my grades improved. I caught up, I began to love learning, and now I'm to say I'm a first-generation college graduate from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. SB 460 threatens the stability of the program for students like me, students who found hope and success through educational choice. This bill may appear to be about accountability, but in reality, it would do more harm than good, forcing participating schools to adopt tests that don't align with their curriculum, risk leaving behind the very students, like I once was, who need personalized support the most. Worse yet, changes to the Nevada Opportunity Scholarship Program within this bill could limit access for low-income families who depend on it the most. Nevada families need your help to choose schools that best meet their child's unique needs. Please don't take away the Nevada opportunities. Please don't take away the opportunities that help students like me turn their lives around. Vote no on SB 460 and stand up for real choice and real change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes. One more in Las Vegas.
Hello, my name is dear members of the Committee on Education. My name is Estela Manzano. That's ESTELA MANZANO. I'm here to respectfully voice my opposition to SB 460. I'm a sophomore attending Mountain View Christian School and have benefited from the Opportunity Scholarships. I remember struggling in math in my public school, but when I transferred, my new teacher helped me a lot. I really like my school because it's a very close-knit community, and I get to be in the same classes with my closest friends, something that's not possible in the large environment of a public school. Whenever I struggled and sometimes didn't want to get my work done, my friends and teachers were always there to support me. In 3rd grade, the year I transferred, my teacher influenced me to get into literature and writing stories. Today, I aspire to be an author and a poet someday. I don't understand why lawmakers want me to take the same tests as public school kids. I learn differently and our lessons aren't the same. Those tests don't really show me what I've learned or how I've grown. This is why I do not support SB 460. We need more opportunities for education so more students like me can have the chance to go to a friendlier and better learning environment. Students deserve more chances so they can become people who change the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mincano. We will go to the phone lines, and it looks like we have about 4 minutes left. AVH?
Thank you, Chair. To testify in opposition to Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 now. And those who had already pressed their hand, you are in the queue.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Perkins, Perkins, and I'm here today to oppose Senate Bill 460. Although the bill has some positive pieces, I have many concerns. First and foremost, in Section 76, I'm not sure how many charter schools are truly going to be able to access the funds for teacher raises. When the districts were given the funds for raises in the last biennium, many charter schools struggled but found ways to make cuts and adjust budgets to match or at least get close to the funding or to the district raises. For example, our school has worked hard to give our teachers an 11% raise over the last biennium to better align with the district raises. The way the bill reads, we will now have to come up with an additional funds to match the statewide funds for teacher raises, although the increase in DSA is minimal. If there is a way we can account for the funds allocated in the last biennium, it would help charter schools better access those. For Section 28, I would like to continue to point out that just because a teacher is qualified does not mean they are effective. I think we hurt ourselves in the state of Nevada by assuming that just because a teacher is qualified means they are effective. I know teachers who appear highly qualified on paper, but relationships and student growth are non-existent in the classroom. I'm a huge fan of accountability, but SB 460 requires extensive additional reporting. I come to you not with criticism, but with concern and a plea. Nevada's education system is struggling, not because of a lack of care, but because we have buried our schools under a growing mountain of legislation, mandates, and reporting requirements. And still, we are not seeing student outcomes where we want them. Charter schools already have yearly financials, state academic report cards, financial performance framework ratings, operational performance framework ratings, and financial performance framework ratings. Trust me, from my 2018 experience, if we are underperforming in any of these areas, we're on the chopping block to be shut down. EIAA has had 12 audits this year alone and had to submit over 160 reports to Epicenter, and we are in good standing. As charters, we don't have any private or hidden data or any hidden information. We need to shift our approach. Let's set clear academic goals and expectations, then trust Nevada schools to find the path to meet them. Support our educators and administrators, not with more paperwork, but with the freedom, support, and expectations to lead and innovate in the community.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have
And
to
yes,
I'm gonna have
hold
to
us
cut you off.
accountable.
Your time is up. I'm gonna have to stop you. But if you want to send your comments in to committee staff, she'll make sure that it's part of the record. Thank you so much for the call. Next caller.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Celine, Seline, calling from Fallon in opposition to SB 460. I'd like to ditto a lot of the previous comments, but I also want to point out I'm bothered by the teacher accountability aspect of this bill because there are many factors that go into a student's academic success, and teachers are only one part of that. Please stop trying to hold teachers solely accountable for student success. Parents and students themselves need to have accountability for the students' success and also their behaviors. I'd like to see maybe an amendment added in that says something like that, holding parents and students also accountable. If that's it, please vote no on SB 460. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Celine. One more caller, AVH.
Hi, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Erin Phillips, and I'm the CEO of Power to Parent Union, and I represent over 15,000 parents in Nevada. And I'm here in opposition of SB 460. And while this bill claims to support Nevada's most vulnerable students, it fails to include or prioritize educational choice, one of, we know, the most effective tools for helping low-income families access better opportunities. By excluding funding for choice programs, SB 460 makes it harder, not easier, for the very students it aims to serve to escape underperforming schools and thrive. I appreciate, for the sake of transparency, all of the members of CCEA and other unions who did testify in support of this bill, because we know that that is a direct result of what this bill in fact really does. There's a continual push by lawmakers to make alternative education options look and function like the public school system. But let's be honest, the public education in Nevada is failing our kids miserably. Families are looking for something different because of what's being offered, because what's being offered isn't working. We should be supporting innovation and choice, not limiting it. We should be supporting these students who have been so brave to come forward today and testify in opposition of this bill, that we know these alternative options are really working for them. Every student deserves access to the education that fits them best. SB 460 moves us in the wrong direction. I'd urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Phillips. We'll come back here to Carson City, and we have time for one comment, and we're going to give it to you. Thank you. I would love to give more, but then we have to go back and open up support for more and all of that. So thank you so much. Please go ahead.
Hello, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Donaire Loop, and members of the Senate Education Committee. For the record, my name is Alice Borland, ALICEBOURLAND. I am in 3rd grade and a student at Doral Academy of Northern Nevada, a public charter school in Reno, Nevada. I'm here to oppose SB 460 because it would take funding away from my public charter school. I love my school and want to see it grow. Our teachers are positive, fair, and make learning fun. Our special classes like music, art, media, and PE let us explore skills beyond reading, math, and science. In music, we learned tinikling from the Philippines. In art, we draw ourselves as paleontologists while studying fossils. In media, we practice typing without looking at the keyboard, and in PE, we learn sportsmanship through games like soccer. None of this would be possible without our specials. Thank you for listening to me. Please do not pass the SB 460 bill. My name is Alice Borland, and I go to Doral Academy of Northern Nevada.
Thank you, Ms. Borland. And again, my apologies for not being able to extend more time on either side, but I certainly need to be fair. So thank you so much for your understanding. We will now open it up for testimony that's neutral. Any neutral testimony, same thing, a total of 30 minutes. And we'll start here, then we'll go to Las Vegas and on the phone line. So if you are in Las Vegas and you have neutral testimony for Senate Bill 460, please come forward at this time. And we will start right here.
30 minutes each, right?
No, 2 minutes for you. Okay. No, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Dundier Loop. My name is Kurt Thigpen, Kurtthigpen. I serve as the Vice Chair of the State Public Charter School Authority. I'm here as one board member, not speaking for all board members. Originally, I was planning on possibly opposing the bill, but I was feeling great about hearing the majority leader's stance on collaboration. My hope is that we can talk more about the part of the bill that speaks to the makeup of the State Public Charter School Authority Board. Right now, the bill, the way it is positioned, would take away from the diversity of our board. So my hope is that we can be allowed to come to the table, have a conversation, continue those conversations with possibly her and her staff. Any committee members I'm happy to chat with as well. I've served on so many boards that I have a lot of ideas of my own on how things could be improved without changing up the overall makeup of our board. We have a really diverse, great, solid board. There's no drama. We're highly efficient at what we do. We have educators, we have business owners, marketing people, even past board members who are experienced with facilities. That was extremely helpful, and even lawyers on our board, that we all bring a piece to the pie that is highly beneficial to make sure that we're doing the best we can in the decisions that we have to make for all of our schools, making sure they're highly efficient, highly effective, and the transparency and accountability is there. We hold our schools highly accountable. I think you all know this, that if a school doesn't live up to their end of the bargain, we will shut them down, and have done so before. So it's a very important job that we have on our volunteer board for the big money we make, but I enjoy it, and I think we have a lot to offer, and would just like to be part of the conversation and see what we can do to improve the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Thigpen.
Thank you.
Please go right ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. I'm Erica Souza-Llamas, ERICA-SOUZA-LL-AMAS. I am the Division Administrator for the Department of Public Safety's Records, Communications, and Compliance Division, otherwise known as the Central Repository for Nevada Records of Criminal History. My division processes fingerprint-based background checks in the state of Nevada for licensing, employment, and volunteer purposes under applicable state and federal authorities. I'm here today to testify in neutral to Senate Bill 460 solely for the purpose of ensuring it is understood that legislation that contains fingerprint language that involves the FBI must be drafted in accordance with federal guidelines. The FBI requires specific language in order for them to approve the statute and to authorize submitting fingerprints through my division to them. There is one section of Senate Bill 460 that will require an amendment to comply with the FBI's requirements to participate in the federal Rat-Back program, and a second section for which additional needed clarification as we have potential concern that the FBI will deny. I have personally been working with the FBI along with my staff for the past 3 years to develop the language they require for participation in the Rat-Back program. Section 60 requires RCCD to participate in the FBI Rat-Back program. This section will need to be amended to meet the FBI's Rat-Back participation language. Section 46 removes the requirement to submit fingerprints on an individual who is returned to employment after a leave of absence because the department would receive notifications for such purposes through the Rat-Back program. Our division has concern with this language and I'm seeking clarification on what a leave of absence is. The FBI will not allow continued enrollment in RAPBAC if the individual is not employed or licensed by the subscribing entity. Once the individual is no longer employed, the subscribing entity would be required to unenroll the individual. If Nevada state legislation fails to include specific language, the FBI will not approve us to participate in the RAPBAC program. I emailed the primary sponsors of the bill with this and other information and look forward to working with them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is my recommendation. Please get with the bill sponsor. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Denise Tanata. It's Denise. My last name is Tanata, and I'm an early childhood comprehensive systems advisor with the Children's Cabinet. I'm here testifying in neutral, specific to sections 13, 75, and 73 related to pre-K programs. As most of us know, this period is essential to the cognitive and social development. Early learning programs, particularly Nevada Ready Pre-K, are essential to ensuring families have access to high-quality programs. And we appreciate the inclusion of the policy in Section 13 and the allocations included in Sections 73 and 75. But we feel that there are still some unknowns from other budget items and bills that leave us neutral on Senate Bill 460, specifically inclusion of resource and policies to sustain our kindergarten entry assessment, which was defunded from the Office of Early Learning and Development in the budget closing. We've talked about how assessments are critical, and that is true in our pre-K settings as well, and need to have the resources to continue that. We are also hopeful that the sponsor will look at integrating some of the provisions in Senate Bill 58 that align the per pupil cost with the pupil-centered funding formula, as well as adding local municipalities and the Nevada system of higher education institutions' ability to administer those pre-K programs. And we're also looking for language that would include infrastructure supports to expand access to Nevada Ready Pre-K programs in private child care settings, including licensed home-based child care, supporting parental choice, and workforce engagement through a mixed delivery model. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tanata. And actually, if there's not support for the bill as submitted, then that actually qualifies as opposition testimony for both yourself and the previous testimony. So please make sure you get with the bill sponsor to correct any of those opportunities that you may have. Thank you so much. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Dondera Loop, and members of the committee. I'm Anthony Curry, Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for Opportunity 180, a nonprofit organization working towards a North Star of every kid graduating high school, college, and career ready, prepared to live the life they dream. We're here to testify in neutral. In our work, we advocate for high-quality public education for every student in Nevada and the conditions necessary for all high-quality public schools, district and charter, to have the most impact on students. We also advocate for strong accountability measures that help to ensure every student receives an education that meets their needs and sets them up for a strong future. We appreciate SB 460 providing for increased accountability in the form of school improvement plans, principal accountability, grants for literacy support, and strengthening the teacher pipeline. We also appreciate the Senate Majority Leader's support for pre-K initiatives, which will help to ensure every Nevada student is on the earliest possible pathway for success. Additionally, we are encouraged by the proposed amendments inclusion of charter school teachers and salary increases provided to traditional district teachers during the 2023 legislative session. As a state, we know we have work to do to improve outcomes and ensure every student has access to a great public school, whether district or charter, and doing so in a way that preserves charter school autonomy and ensures deeper accountability for district schools. We hope to work with the Majority Leader and her co-sponsors as this bill moves forward to continue to strengthen the key provisions that align with what students and families are asking to see in public education in service of outcomes we know are possible for Nevada students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Anyone else here in Carson City or in Las Vegas for neutral testimony? Okay, seeing none, we will go to the phone lines. AVH, this is for neutral testimony for Senate Bill 460.
Thank you, Chair. To testify in neutral to Senate Bill 460, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello there, Chair and members. This is Danielle Ford for the record.
DANIELLEFORD. I'm an elected member of the State Board of Education, speaking as an individual neutral on SB 460. A lot of this bill looks promising, but I have some serious concerns and a few proposed amendments to politely suggest. There are parts of the bill that genuinely respond to the public.
Ms. Ford.
Yeah?
I am so sorry, but if you're recommending a change to the bill, then that qualifies as opposition testimony, and we've extended that time already. So I would suggest, though, your recommendations, please send them in. Please make sure you get with the bill sponsor so that they can be considered. But I have to be even for every side. And
You
so,
accepted the first two speakers.
right, which is why I don't accept, because then it continues on. What we need to do is have you please send those recommendations in. Please make sure you speak with the majority leader.
Okay, then I'll change my comments to be neutral.
Okay, thank you. Please go right ahead then.
Some reasons that I am happy with this bill is that it adds $250 million to the teacher salary incentive pool, and it opens the door for apprenticeships, which is the kind of investment that we need. It also closes a loophole that allowed 1 in 5 charter classrooms to be staffed by unlicensed teachers. This bill would bring charter schools up to the same standard as everyone else. Some concerns I have about it is that if we're serious about protecting public education, we must think about things like Section 13 opening early literacy funding to for-profit pre-K providers without income caps. That's a backdoor voucher expansion, and it risks diverting public funds away from the kids who need it most. Some other things to potentially question as a neutral opinion is that the oversight board could potentially override elected school boards, which would sidestep the full open meeting law. To me, that's not reform, that's privatized governance without public accountability. And as far as opportunity scholarships, we should think about whether or not there should be a cap currently until the public can see real data from any new testing and financial reporting. Expansion without proven results is reckless. So I'm very neutral on this bill because SB 460 has the potential to move Nevada toward a transparent, better funded public education system, but we can't open the door to privatization dressed up as reform.
Ms. Ford, thank you so much. You're sliding across the line now. So thank you very much. We do appreciate it. I really appreciate your work on the state board as well. Next caller, please.
Chair, we have no additional callers at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. That's it for neutral, and then so we'll see. Do you have any closing comments, please, Madam Majority Leader? And again, for anyone who didn't get to testify, my apologies, but we needed to be fair on every side, and I did the absolute best that I could. Please, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for taking the time today to both hear the substance of Senate Bill 460, and then also, of course, accommodate everyone who was here to testify in support, in opposition, and in neutral or neutral-ish. Obviously, this bill has a lot of components, and I think anytime you have a bill, you all have had bills that do one little thing and we get intense support and intense opposition. Anytime you have a lot of things in one bill, I think it's really hard to try to get everyone into support and everyone into opposition. The one thing I will say is a huge thank you to everyone who has come to voice their opinions, both in support and in opposition and in neutral, because I do think that when it comes to this sort of policy, a robust conversation is going to lead us to the best position when we come up with a finalized piece of legislation for the committee to consider and for this legislative body to consider, which is my hope. So I wanted to touch on just a few things because I do think it's important for this committee to know that first and foremost, I have tried very diligently to have meetings with everybody, either myself or staff in the office that is helping to work on the bill, to have meetings with anybody who would like to have meetings about the substance of Senate Bill 460. I would encourage anyone else who is out there listening that invitation remains open. Obviously, the more voices that we have, I think the better. And so I do and will continue to work on this to alleviate any of the concerns that we are able to alleviate. But I wanted to touch on just a few things that we heard. I know that there was some commentary about whether or not universal pre-K or building up to universal pre-K is something that we should do as a smart financial incentive in this state, and where it is that we should be investing those dollars. I would make the case every day, all day long, that pre-K is absolutely one of the best uses of funding that we could have when it comes to a child's education. Setting them up for that success, you can read almost every study that has ever been done on pre-K and the benefits thereof, and for a variety of reasons, any sort of pre-K education that we can do is going to make a difference for children, and is going to save us money, I believe, in the long run, because children are going to be able to better enter that educational journey in whatever form that is, and to succeed. And so I guess along those same lines, when it comes to some of the infrastructure pieces and why it is that we tried to expand that into some of the for-profits, you will see in the conceptual amendment that we have tried to prioritize those so that they would go to our district schools and to other public and nonprofit centers as well. But we struggle with a capacity issue. There are just not functionally enough places to put kids in where we currently have them. And so in order to help expand that capacity piece, we wanted to be inclusive of some of the places that might otherwise be able to start providing those placements for students. And I think the whole goal, right, is to make sure that any kid who wants to get pre-K can actually get pre-K. And that's why we structured this language the way that it exists. And that's also why you see some of the allotment for the infrastructure dollars to allow folks to come in and build that within our district schools, within charter schools, and within the nonprofit space, to build the actual facility space to house kids who are in pre-K. When it comes to the oversight board, there was a lot of testimony about whether or not this board would have to meet openly. That is actually language that is included in the bill. It also provides that the board has to have means for audiovisual testimony, and that board would have to meet in the district in which the issue is occurring. There are a lot of checks and balances with that board that involve not only input from the executive branch and the legislative branch, but also the State Board of Ed, and which allow for, a very strategically focused oversight for where there is an issue, in order for that issue to be remedied, so that we can actually have some accountability with parents and students who are looking for an education system to just work for their child, right? Not to be embroiled in whether or not a board is following the law, not following the law. We should be following the law. We should be delivering for students, and absolutely having that board meet and to allow those meetings to be open to the public is actually in the language of the bill. When it comes to charter schools, because we heard a lot from all these amazing kids, who I want to make very clear, nothing in this bill is getting rid of charter schools that currently exist who are doing what they need to do in order to educate students. The SPCSA certainly has oversight capabilities as it exists currently. This doesn't do anything to take away charter schools that currently exist. Nothing in this bill does that. In fact, the only thing that this bill will do for current charter schools is allow money to be accessed for teachers to get raises, and to say that we want those teachers to either have a license, right, which many of them do, or to have some kind of endorsement, something that says that you are qualified to teach the thing that you are seeking to teach those students. That is a very minimal thing that I think we can ask of people who present in the classrooms for kids. What this bill does do is say that if a charter wants to expand, or if a new charter wants to come in that we are not familiar with, that we should be allowed to ask the question, in addition to a whole series of requirements that, by the way, charters have to meet if they're seeking to expand, or if they're seeking to have a new charter open up. That along those many things that we have to ask, and which the SPCSA has to evaluate, that we include other folks in that conversation, because it does impact our community as a whole, and B, that they provide some documentation regarding the financial ability and capability of those charter schools, and that is an efficient use of money. I think that they are very capable of making that argument, because there are a lot of kids who are succeeding in charter schools. And so if you can say that we are able to provide education in a way that maximizes the public money investment that is being made, that should be something that we should ask for them to do. That is absolutely something that we as a body and as a state should be asking. And so that is what this bill is actually doing when it comes to charter schools. This bill doesn't do anything to limit current school choice. It doesn't take away or restrict opportunity scholarships. It doesn't take away or restrict access or the ability for charter schools to operate. It doesn't take away or exist or restrict the ability to attend a CTE program or to attend a magnet school in your school districts or to attend schools within the school district. It doesn't do any of that. What it does say is that we want to be able to ask some questions and have some accountability on the back end, and as specifically when it pertains to opportunity scholarships, to know where those students are, because that was a big question that the interim finance committee did have when we had that meeting. We didn't know how many students, we didn't know where they were. It turns out that there was just not a lot of that information. So this bill is seeking to remedy that. And yes, we're asking them to take some of those same just minimal proficiency tests, because if in fact those students are learning better and if in fact they are excelling, we should be able to see that data so that we can then make assessments about whether or not that is a program that we should continue to fund, whether or not that's a program that more students should be involved in. If we can't see that data on the front end to say that these students are actually excelling above and beyond, I think it's very hard for us to actually consider those types of questions here in the legislative body. There were some questions about the voting rights of the trustees, and I think that the difference between the last session and this session, when that change was amended to allow for appointed members and to restrict those voting rights, is that we've actually now had 2 years to see that in the process, a little less than 2 years with the time to pass the bills and for it to come into implementation for folks to be appointed. But I think that what that time has allowed us to do is to answer the question of whether or not it makes sense to include those members' voices in a voting capacity, and I think resoundingly that answer is yes, if you have watched those school board meetings in Clark County School District. They are bringing a voice of reason, they are bringing a voice that matters, and I think that they are representing constituencies that absolutely should have those voting rights attached to those voices. When it comes to the pay pieces, we've had a lot of conversations. I think the intent of the bill, right, was to make sure that we are getting that same data that we asked of the school districts in the first instance, which was how many teachers do you have, how many staff do you have, what do your vacancies look like, how would you utilize these dollars, how is it that you're going to provide a pay raise, how much would that be, and then have IFC be able to evaluate that information and then make a decision about matching funds for those raises. And on the back end, have them come back to us and talk about what that looked like in terms of being able to decrease vacancies and keep teachers in the classroom. And so that's the intent of that language. I know that we've heard some concerns that some charters were able to give raises in this last interim, and so now it would be difficult with the per pupil funding to provide an additional raise on top of that. And so I've made a commitment to work with them on some language that would allow for the interim finance committee to consider that as we consider those matching state dollars for those raises. Obviously, not all charter schools did that, and so I do think it is important for us to receive that data in the interim finance committee. So we'll work to refine some of that language to account for whether or not a charter has given those types of raises and where those monies came from and how that would move forward in the future. So I am committed to trying to work through that just as a matter of amendment. I will definitely work with the folks at the Central Repository on the Wrap Back program, because we think that that's a good way for us to continue to have updated information as it pertains to individuals who are licensed and working in educational settings, to have updated criminal history and criminal history events included, but we want to make sure we get that language right so that the FBI will approve it. And I think that sort of rounds out some of the biggest pieces that that I had heard that I wanted to just address with this committee. And again, the SPCSA did come and talk about the membership. We were attempting to add some additional voices that we thought were important to that conversation, but certainly discuss that briefly here in the committee room with Mr. Thigpen, and we'll work to have a meeting and talk about some of those concerns and see if we can't work on that language. And so with that, Madam Chair, I want to thank this committee very much and committee staff for their amazing work on this bill and helping us to get here. I know it is a lot. I appreciate everyone's diligence in taking a look at the language and being engaged in the topic area. I do believe that we can do a good job here in Nevada to give kids an education, and I think that there are just a few things that we can maybe change a little bit and do a little bit better. And so thank you, Madam Chair, for the time. Thank you, members of the committee, and thank you, staff, for all of your very hard work in helping to allow me the time to present this bill.
Thank you, Madam Majority Leader, and thank you to the committee members, and thank you for all who came to share their thoughts on either side of the issue. Very important. And for those who had ideas and didn't really get to thoroughly share them, you heard the Majority Leader say she is open for conversation. So I do encourage you again to please reach out, because at the end of the day, you want to try to make the bill as good as it can be. Okay, thank you so much. No comments from our committee? So fantastic. We will now go to the last item on our agenda, which is public comment. Public comment. If you would like to make public comment on any item not already covered on the agenda and on any item that's within the purview of our committee, then you're certainly welcome to do that at this time. Please come forward if you're here in Carson City. If you're there in Las Vegas, don't see any AVH, we will go to the phone lines. 2 minutes each. Please go right ahead.
Thank you, Chair. To provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers for public comment at this time.
Okay, AVH, thank you so much. And thank you, committee. We will be call of the chair. We will be call of the chair depending on if we have bills that are referred to us and so on. On Wednesday. We are adjourned today. Yeah, no, we're not recessing today. We are adjourning today. Yes, we're adjourning. There will be call of the chair on Wednesday. Thank you, everybody.